You guys are good to go.
Okay, good. Yes. Turn your mics on.
Turn the mics on.
Welcome to the, what date is this? May 8th, 2025, Southampton Town Planning Board. We'll have a roll call, please, Gloria.
Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty.
Present.
Secretary is here. Board Member Neely.
Present.
Board Member Fulham. Present. Board Member Glazer.
Present.
Board Member Buchu is absent. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any minutes, Gloria?
Do April 24.
April 24. Just that?
That's, yes, and then we're up to date.
Wonderful. Dennis, you're moving it. Kate, seconding it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. We're going to close out the regular session and go into a work session with Seth and Janice to discuss the revised battery energy storage system code article. Come on up. Welcome. Hi.
We have some printouts here
That's our
of
man of the
everything,
hour.
so.
Yes, I did supply you with an Article 33, which is the main thrust of the Battery Energy Storage Systems Code. There are,
What's this one?
that is the,
That's the-
and that's the table of contents for quick review. So
Okay.
you have,
I think these are the crib notes.
yep, there you
The
go.
crib
So
notes,
that's-
this is the whole thing.
Yes, that is the whole thing. And as far as Article 33, there are 7 other companion codes that were presented to the town board
Saw that.
along with this, 3 of which were the tables of uses, residential, commercial, light industrial. We also looked at Chapter 157, which lists out all the Type 1 activities. I'll just give you since we're there, Tier 2, which we will get into, is now a Type 1 action under SECRA. Then we also looked at accessory structures. That's another section of code that was bent a little bit.
And Tier 2 is.
Why don't you start at the beginning, like
Yeah,
the things
start
that
at the
concern
beginning.
the
Sorry, I'll
planning
tend
board?
to-
Yeah,
Just
don't
like
take any segues.
Don't go segue?
Don't segue.
just
do
there's
systematically.
up to 80 and then go from
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so we had some companion codes. They're quite self-explanatory. We'll leave it at that. But I think with the time we have, we should be looking into the Article 33. But how did we get here? So there is currently a moratorium in effect town-wide for 600 kilowatt hours and above. That was in our town code under 16221. It was a special exception standards code.
And that's anything that's not allowed in your house.
We'll get into
Detail. of
into
it.
the details of zoning and permissions here momentarily.
If I may, so that was your special exception code that is now going to be repealed in its entirety. So one of the referral that you're getting is, should we repeal this in its entirety, which you'll comment back.
Because I saw that at the
Yeah.
town board. I mean, it was like a traffic jam of repealing. Yeah.
So we just repealed it because to insert and fix would be like a nightmare of a document to look at and understand. So scrapped that one, start over, and we redid it to be like the cell tower, its own section. That's why it's now in Article 33. So it's its own section, and then we did the tiering system so that the things that this board will be concerned about are the Tier 1 and the Tier 2. Tier 1 being accessory to a business like a supermarket. They want to have a battery.
Mhm.
How is that? And then Tier 2 being 600 kilowatts. Before it used to say and above, and then we got caught out there, and 100 megawatts later, we're here and we're saying that the town board is now saying 5 is the cutoff. So
It's all
from
under
600 to
330.
5.
33424.
Yes. So
It's
Tier 1 is
426, if you want to open up your code,
Yeah.
applicability is the tiering system. And
Yeah.
This
Is
will
that,
give you an idea.
what about, is it on here?
yes. It's you'll see under small scale C at 426A.
Page 28.
So there's a small scale that goes.
I
They
don't
call
have
it
28.
behind the meter.
There's
I have 25.
Oh, I'm sorry, do I have the long version? Oh, one second. It's section 426.
426. A, but we're concerned about
And
B and C.
I have page 7 on
I'm
mine.
sorry,
Seven,
I have
Tom?
a different version. My page numbers are
On
off.
page 7.
Page 7 is 33426, applicability.
Yes.
Oh,
Tiering system.
Right.
That's how I'm think of it.
Yep.
So A being the small scale, I'm sorry, I
No,
interrupted.
no, go ahead. I just
A
wanted
scale-
to make it a little more clear to start, because it's
Sure.
already confusing.
The small scale, they're gonna be subject to building permits, electrical permits. They're small. There's a threshold for the size. They go up to 40 interior, 80 exterior. These are your residential units. These are behind the meter, which is just a phrase of, it's not an actual siting stipulation. At any rate, small power walls, for example, a power wall holds between 7 and 13 kilowatt hours of energy. That's what you plug your battery electric vehicle into, which probably has between a 40 and 100 kilowatt hour battery inside of it. So,
and what size is that, like so?
well,
I had asked you a little bit
yeah,
ago,
a
so we could
Powerwall
visualize
would
it.
be
40 inches tall.
40 inches tall, yeah, maybe 8 inches deep.
Okay,
They
so it's
mount
small.
on the wall, yeah.
So
they're-
this is subject to a building permit through the building
Oh, yeah, yeah.
department, so we start at,
You start at B.
right?
Yeah, jump to B,
Yeah.
because we
Up
don't
to
have
B,
a
yeah,
packed
so-
house here.
We have the residents, they're allowed to do those residential units. Those are also allowed throughout the other zones. We go into the next one, which would be B, Tier 1.
Okay,
Now we're subject to planning and zoning. We have limited it between let's just use 80 to 600. It's going to require a lot area of 40,000 feet. It's not permissible in residential zones. This is only in business districts and light industrial. So the moment we've switched to Tier 1, we're ruling it out of residences.
do we
And
have
tier
that
2 is
chart?
also no residential. These are only.
Oh, we have the charts in here.
We
Commercial.
do have the charts as well.
Here's charts.
So, the tier 1 is, they're both special exception. One has special safeguards and the other just is the general standards. So the first one, the tier 1, up to 600, accessory battery. You still have to say in the general standards that it's appropriate and adequate and makes sense where you're putting it. So it still has that level of scrutiny where it's not guaranteed P. So the board wanted it to be that there was a level of oversight there that on both tiers.
So where is it, Janice, on the use, on the,
You'll see they both say SE. Tier 1 says SE and tier 2 says SE.
am I looking at the
Yeah.
right place?
But when you go to the
Business
standards,
and light industrial is where
so
you'll see
they're
it.
both permitted potentially by a special exception, which as you know is like a conditional use permit. Tier 1 is just 122, which are the general standards. Tier 2 is the general plus the specific safeguards. Because it's 600 kilowatt up to 5 megawatt.
And how large a
So-
unit is that? Refrigerator, bigger?
That's right. It's around a refrigerator. It's a cabinet. It's
Is this tier 1
two
or tier 2?
cubic
Tier 1.
square footage. Is like two. It could be like two refrigerators put side by side.
They're in a they're containerized and they have to show how many batteries they're putting in a container on a pad. What the pad has to meet accessory setbacks, etc. And it cannot be adjoining a residential district in any circumstance. So just rule of thumb, even if you're a supermarket and you're next to a residential parcel, you can't have it.
So how many batteries go in to provide to provide this power?
For tier 2, for the tier 1 between 80 and 600. So when we think about lithium ion batteries, there's a breakdown. You have cells, which are like literally a battery, AAA. And then you have racks and you have modules. So these are a lot of little batteries. Let's say your cell phone, and now we've got 1,000 of these little batteries from your cell phone in one unit. So that's where they're just replicating by putting more and more of these little cells. Interestingly or importantly, every cell in these containers is monitored by a battery monitoring system. These are not standardized software now in these containers. They can actually see the thresholds of the energy coming in and out of each battery. They can look at the the heat, if it's overheating or not. At any rate, each individual cell can be isolated if there was a problem. So the more that these batteries are, the more they're put into the containers, the more rigorous the control measures that
And
they
it's
have.
all computerized.
It's all computerized. It's all connected to remote operation centers, which is in here in the code as well. But yeah, they have internalized fire safety provisions of they can spray it, they off vent and they burn the gas off. If there's a flammable gas, they will do that on their own. So it's a very interesting industry, and this equipment is highly sophisticated.
A question, when you said that tier 1 is the regular special exception standards,
The general standards.
but what about decommissioning and some of the concerns?
Those are still your site plan conditions. You can still, yeah.
So there's another section that has to be addressed as part of the code that relies specifically with battery storage, whether it's a tier 1 or a tier 2, question mark?
Yes, and it's interesting, you raised decommissioning. Now, that wouldn't really apply to the tier 1. I mean, you can certainly look into
Because
it.
it's not its own utility facility. A decommissioning is because this is like a power plant, right? It's like it's working with the grid. There's commissioning and decommissioning. An accessory battery is not the same thing, right? So that's why, I mean, you still have to dispose of everything properly, and you can put whatever conditions you want around that. But the tier 2 is like, it's a facility, right?
Commercial, I mean,
It's an industrial facility. It's in an industrial zone. Tier 2 is 600 megawatt to 600 kilowatt to 500 megawatt. 5 megawatt. Oh my God, 600 kilowatt to 5 megawatt is a battery primary use facility. It can be in connection with solar, but it is its own facility that gets commissioned, turned on. It's interconnected with the grid. There's like a lot more than just say a battery, accessory to a business.
To put
So
that
the-
in
so the-
context,
The battery is not connected to the grid in a supermarket example.
It potentially can be, but it's not the same thing because it's not the same level of energy storage.
Okay.
So we don't use that same term, decommissioning. It's more like removal, removal plan. You may require that in a site plan, or, it's not the same level of power plant decommissioning feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm just questioning what additional, if any, things that when we review the site plan, if it's just special exception usage, that doesn't really, it may not address battery storage. In some ways it may,
yes,
like noise, for example,
yes.
but there's nothing else that has to be done?
There is, and the tiering that it talks about all the fire protection codes it has to meet.
Okay, that's
So
kind of
Still
where
subject
I'm
to
going.
secret. It's
Yes.
still subject to secret
Oh, and
as
it's
well.
still subject to secret, and it still
Tier-
has
tier
all
one?
the cross-referencing to
Type
the
2.
fire. Sure. Sorry. we're both
Well,
talking.
yeah, we're all talking at the same. So
Sure, you want
if
me
I
to
may,
go?
the secret review will take place with the tier 1. For tier 2, it's a type 1 action.
Automatically.
Yeah, it's type 1.
Mhm.
So no matter what, you will have a secret review on the type 1.
Okay.
And what about tier
Tier 1.
Tier 1.
And then for decommissioning, it's certainly it's a big part of the special exception standards that we have put in Article
The new
33.
ones, that's, okay.
for tier 1, you did say that on some occasions where the property is adjunct to a residential, that you can't have it, but is there a
Yes.
linear foot?
300 feet,
300 feet?
property line to
Okay.
property line. So not like you're saying cannabis door-to-door type of measurements, which that came from the state. That's not our way of, we don't like that. We like property line is a nice boundary. We know where it is. So we're not gonna sit here
And measure where the door is.
I spoke with the emergency management, Mr. Ryan Murphy, excuse me. Yeah, so there's an orange book. It's an alphabet soup of the name of it, but there's it calls out if there's a fire incident at a lithium ion that involves lithium ion, 300 feet is a standard evacuation. So
So
I think that was one of the questions we had when we had an earlier conversation. Where did that come from?
Yeah, because that was the zone of dissipation of if there was any kind of, the questions came up about like, what about the smoke? And is this air quality, is this toxic to me? And I'm living over here and I don't want this. And so the industry standard was after 300 feet, there was no, and that fire agency working group, they came to find that there's no
dissipates.
dissipate with it after 300 feet.
Well, we have the first public hearing on this. We might have some people who disagree with that number. I mean, I remember the public hearing we had, it came in from almost a mile, at least half a mile radius, objecting to the
Yes.
facility.
But the good news is this is no longer anywhere other than industrial, light industrial.
Yeah.
And only in very limited circumstances is there any residence within 300 feet. And those wouldn't qualify. So those parcels of the
That was-
LI.
that was
So
when
we
it was allowed
really drilled onto
in
the
town.
maps very specifically with the working group to be like, if you impose this, these all go, here's the only ones that will meet it, that kind of thing. And we felt pretty good about the 300 feet because there was nothing other than like maybe a couple of parcels and they wouldn't be eligible then.
Do you have a
So
copy of those maps where they're
I
indicated?
have several maps,
those
several
will all be
iterations.
in the secra
Yes.
that goes with this when it gets adopted.
Okay.
If I could speak to that, because I think we saw an early version during one of our work sessions. And also the reference to coastal evacuation routes. At that time, we weren't really sure what roads were designated as coastal evacuation routes. And I think just, instinct says it's County Road 39, it's, Sunrise Highway, it's Flanders Road, it's County Road 80, Montauk Highway. And at that time, it looked like once you set that 500-foot limit in the Long Island Railroad, there was almost no place to put them. So I was just wondering if you've refined that. Did you get the definitions of what the coastal evacuation routes are?
We did. It's defined by the state. I recall, it's certainly in the code, and updated periodically. It's, interestingly enough, it's not updated or it's very rarely updated. They've been the same coastal evacuation routes forever.
Once they were established, right?
And we did put it in our models, and yes, it excluded further the zones, especially since the highways and the transmission lines are pretty much side by side
Right.
in many cases.
Right.
However, that was the decision the steering committee was interested in, and I believe the town board supported. So
So
we
the
marched forward with the 500.
probably sounds like very limited places where it could be done, but you'll have a map that a possible developer or whatever can see the sites that are
Absolutely.
meeting the criteria.
It doesn't take away the 500 foot, the site is in 500 feet, the facility itself. So say you have a really deep lot and you can be set back more than 500 feet, I don't think it would knock you out the same way that adjacent to a residence is knocked out.
But this gets you to, and again, we discussed it early on in the process, some kind of a master list that possible developers will know where they maybe be able to see on a map. Here's the places that you can look
Yeah.
at.
As opposed to LIPA telling them where they should
Is
go.
that going to be incorporated into the code, this location?
We never do that. We don't put maps in the, we just want to make sure we have a level playing field where you're not just making it so restricted that only one person benefits. So we made sure we have an ample amount of parcels that qualify on the east of the canal and the west of the canal. So
But
that
you'll
way-
fill in the map as you go along, right? The way we do with the cell towers, to make sure that there is
There is a provision for
Yeah,
that.
there's a
Yeah.
database that has to be
Yes.
kept, and we'll do that in GIS,
Yeah.
so we can always update those
Yeah.
maps.
And a requirement for the planning board to see where, just like cell towers, where are the other ones located? We're not trying to aggregate. I mean, at a certain point, if they're LI, they're going to be.
We all know where
aggregated.
the LIs are,
Yeah.
so after that, it's just a matter of, do you meet the minimum lot size? Or you have a property line boundary shared with residential? Those things are gonna be your qualifiers. But like
Did you
Spionk Riverhead
determine-
Road has a significant amount of, LI that at least 9 parcels, I think we were looking at. And that's not a coastal evacuation route, that's so those could qualify potentially. And then on the east side, we have some up in, But then we have the railroad and we have, so there's a couple, it's a little trickier.
Do you know how many parcels within the town qualify with this new code?
Hardly.
I had 32.
So
Gone
less
through
than 50.
the different
Yeah.
buffers.
Not a bunch,
No,
but at least.
how many LI 40, I don't recall how many LI 40 and 200 there are, but there aren't that many to begin with.
Right.
And again, we're discussing tier 2 at this point. We are allowing the tier 1s as an accessory or a primary use in business districts, which is
Just accessory.
just accessory.
To what extent does proximity transmission lines govern where these are located?
Very important. On the larger scale, the utility scale units, if they cannot connect to the transmission line for the most part, then they wouldn't be able to build out.
Has the town done any analysis as to?
We were able to, through the steering committee, to access LIPA's hosting capacity maps, which has every distribution line and all the transmission lines, the voltage, the things, lots of information there, who's in the queue, who's trying to put a solar. At any rate, we used that overlay map and put our zones, and we looked at, okay, it gave you you could actually put in the filter up to 5 megawatt, and it would show you the lines that can handle up to 5 megawatt.
Yeah.
And then we would put that with our maps and see how they coincided.
Right.
So we did do an analysis on our own. However, that being said, an applicant would do that on their own to begin with, before they would probably even come to us. And in order to come to us, they'd have to give us a letter from LIPA as part of our code saying it's been researched. There's a letter confirming that this is not just a red herring. Let's say.
So you're in the lead here, not LIPA.
Yes. Yeah. So
That's good.
that's an
Although,
important
yeah,
factor.
if you're having to put transmission lines in, no one's really probably going to avail themselves to only get it out of it 5 megawatt. So,
Too
much
costly.
of a
I think it's
dollar
it's cost prohibitive at some point.
Does this get into the burying of the lines to connect to LIPA versus overhead connections? Is that in
Yeah,
here?
it says it's required except at the connection point, right? It has to be underground.
Underground.
Yes,
Interconnect.
except the interconnect point where there's LIPA requires that. There's no way we could zone it out because then you would eliminate everyone.
And we have underground at the site. Site-specific
Yeah, like
as well.
subdivisions, underground utilities.
So we got to tier 2 yet?
Well,
We kind of
you know-
glanced at it, but maybe we should
Well, we
hone
were
in
talking
on-
about just the avoidance areas, I think of, certain tier 2s, so like the lot size.
80,000 on the tier
About-
2.
What page are you?
7, 8, I think we're at,
Okay,
part
Nine-
C is
nine
tier
is
2.
tier 2 is
So
C.
you see like parcels within 300 feet of an occupied community building parcel, meaning like a school, a hospital, et cetera.
Single-family residence.
Single-family, an industrial district that we mentioned that shares the property with any of those
Now,
things.
what about a hospital? Say, for example, they build a new hospital. They're going to put in their own battery storage
Probably
system.
won't. They'll probably use generators still to this day,
Still?
which is not sustainable. But I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of carbon, but
They wouldn't.
most hospitals will likely put a generator
Well, but under the code, they would be permitted up to
up to a certain amount of their output. So they could do up to 600 kilowatt hours, which may be enough for hospital backup.
Mhm.
But we don't,
I'm just thinking
Hospital.
ahead.
Yeah,
Oh, Southampton moves
They
to
have to
the
generate
campus.
their own electricity to do it, they're not putting solar on the hospitals. Maybe if they build a new one,
right.
but the old ones don't have it.
We did design a microgrid for this hospital
Yeah.
in this whole village.
Yeah.
That would be awesome, but that didn't
Yeah.
happen. So anyway, coastal erosion areas, it's kind of intuitive. Nobody wants to put them there. Special flood areas, the core, aquifer protection overlay where clearing standards cannot be met. In other words, they shouldn't be coming here saying, here's, most of the APOD is in residential zones anyway, so it kind of knocks
Right.
it out. So, but some of the LI, and if they have to over clear in order to get it, then you would say that's
Counted.
avoidance.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in the Pine Barrens.
Right, yeah. Ag lands, we don't want to start opening that can of worms. Historically and culturally significant resources, unless it can be demonstrated, it will not adversely affect that resource. and it's fully reversible. Any designated conservation area, designated scenic corridors or view sheds within 500, as Thomas mentioned, the coastal evacuation route, which the county seemed to like that. They said they never had thought of that before.
Say again?
Like Suffolk County, they're like looking over this code, and they mentioned to me when I was at their meeting that they like that. They were gonna recommend that to other towns as well. And wetlands. So then, and then it gets into, we said that it's gonna be type 1 action. We have like indemnifications, there's exemptions, skipping down then to the special standards for tier 2.
Tier 2.
Can I just ask a question about, well, maybe it's more in tier 2 than tier 1, sand mines?
That got taken out
Is that?
because sand mines are residential
Yeah.
zones.
Mhm.
So we had another section for a renewable energy overlay, like a zoning overlay that the town board could put, and then it could go from 5 megawatts up to 19 and still stay below the state, so you still have home rule. And they said, until we feel comfortable, we just don't want to do that now.
Okay,
So they're not doing that anytime soon.
okay.
We can still do solar, but just not battery.
Right, which, I have to say, like, the solar does want the batteries, but not in the residential zone, can't.
So we'll jump into the special exception standards. Are you guys, that's section 429. Again, it's specific.
429, yes, okay.
11.
Tier 2.
So then those are the specifics, the minimum lot area. These are the standards that will be coming to you that you'll be reviewing the application against. Do they meet these things? So they can't be like, hi, I'm 5 megawatt, and then I have this next door parcel that's also 5. You can't do that. If they're same owner, same everything, it can only be 5 total. Can't aggregate. It gives us the typical screening access. It's saying you have to have a proper frontage on a real road, no dirt path back to wherever to have these batteries. They have to be on a real road. Landscape maintenance, the enclosure. Some people in other places, they don't always have batteries in containers. Obviously, we want them in the containers with the whole monitoring system and all that. And this is new, that the 20 feet on all around has to be free and clear, no vegetation, it could be like gravel. Initially, we had like ground cover in there, I think, and they said, no, just all,
You don't
just
want
like
anything
nothing.
that could burn.
So it doesn't burn.
Nothing that can burn.
Janice, the housing, the covering, now, some places, I guess, they're just open air, for want of a better word, and other places they're within a building. Are you saying?
Yeah, I'm saying this is utility scale. Again, this is 600 kilowatts to
The
5
bigger
megawatt
ones.
has to be in a storage container. Somebody who has like a little one, as long as they meet the fire protection code and the state building code, up to
Storage
8.
container, I'm a little confused, within it, like a building, a structure over or
They
surrounding
actually
the.
are encapsulated in there. They're sold in the container because you have actually the fire suppression system is in there. The computer system that runs it is in there. It's all, what had happened is at the beginning, they were rooms you could walk into where the batteries would be housed.
Right.
This has developed past that where these are just cabinets or containers that are dropped off on site with everything included inside. You literally just connect this giant ISO container
There's an
to the
outer
grid,
shell or.
which has got standards and codes and testing methods. We have a list that's put together with 21 different standards and again testing certifications. And those containers are the things that get certified, not the individual cell, but the entirety of the container or cabinet.
But also, he said giant, but in a 5 megawatt setting, they're not like that big. The 100 megawatt was the shocking one that so a lot of those containers in a 5 megawatt installation, maybe you'd have 4.
Container is 3
Yeah.
megawatts. That's your standard on the back of a truck. That's about 3 megawatts in,
Oh,
one,
so
in
5.
one of those.
So in all of this, is there a mechanism in the code that requests reports from these people on a periodic basis that it's functioning well? And who would get it? The engineering department here? I don't know.
You're touching on a critical point and something that has come out of after the 3 fires that occurred, there was an interagency working group put together by Governor Hochul. Some of the experts in the field got together and they dissected all the different standards and codes, specifically the fire code. And in the fire code, there's a provision that said municipalities shall consider peer review when they have a site plan with a battery. It's now a requirement that we have peer review. Importantly, NYSERDA, the Energy and Research Development Agency with New York, is offering this for 600 kilowatt hours and above, so we're talking tier 1, tier 2, free. So we had it in our code that the applicant had to pay, but NYSERDA will come and review the system for all compliance with all the different national standards, testing methods, etc., and put a report in our hands saying if it passes or if it fails. Additionally, there is also, while we're deciding, what's called a clean siting team. This is another service by the state. They will send someone who will help us understand the best siting, the design standards for each particular battery. NYSERDA. This is all part of their incentive program. It's called the Retail Incentive Program. They're
pushing battery
Sure.
storage.
The Climate Leadership and Communities Preservation Act says 3,000 megawatts by 2030.
And will NYSERDA come in on a regular basis to do this, let's say yearly or biannually?
So this would be, I was speaking to the review process.
Right.
Now, there are several, we have commissioning plans, we have preliminary commissioning plans that would help us understand what's proposed on the site, what's actually put on the site. There is a lot of back and forth between the applicant and us. There are several provisions, there's a wide variety of provisions in the special exception standards. There's probably 5 or 6 plans there's a fire prevention plan, an emergency response plan. All of these things have to be periodically updated.
Okay.
And they do an annual training with our fire.
Required.
Responders.
So what is the planning board looking at? What's our responsibility?
Those
Is it all
citing
those
standards we
areas?
just went over.
Just the citing
Zoning.
standards.
And if you say, but we don't understand, but we don't, you remember that was like an issue initially, like we don't have the expertise, we don't,
Right.
you now have what Seth was talking about, an outside neutral agency of NYSERDA to facilitate that peer review, somebody else look at it and say, well, if you say, they're creating this berm and the cabinet is right here, is that too close? And you're asking us and we say, we don't know, and we can go to the expert and be like, where's the right point where this thing should be in the berm? So it's really like siting standards, screening, making sure they are committing to all the things, vetting these people that they've given you their sort of bona fides that they're
So they're
a proper
available,
entity.
Janice, all the time, or do you get on a waiting list?
So NYSERDA offers their service. Then, of course, there are private third-party organizations that we can partner or have a list of that we can turn to.
Like a consultant?
ESRG consultants.
The type
Yeah,
one.
I don't think you're gonna get like a flood of these that
No.
we're gonna be flooding them with it either.
But there are other avenues.
Okay.
But yeah, they, so you're looking at, you would refer the stormwater management plan to the town engineer, like you always do. You'll refer, things to the fire marshal, like you always do. Maybe the cabinets could be, we gave in the code up to 15 feet. They really only need to be, they come 10 feet. But what if you wanted them clad a certain way to look a certain aesthetic? You could do that. You can refer to the ARB. You can, so the same things you always do.
Infrastructure.
Screening and landscaping and stormwater, and there's an aquifer protection component here where they have like this drainage area, like almost like you've done with golf courses where they have a retention pond. So then, for monitoring wells or whatever, like you can do that kind of thing as well.
Those are lined.
Yeah, so that would be provision 9.
Yeah, and the water, if say there's a fire event and the water doesn't just, the concern was, wait a minute,
Where does it go?
this water's just seeping back into the groundwater, it would all go to a retention pond that gets tested to make sure it doesn't have any contaminants prior to its release.
Got it.
So we hope we've captured everything that everyone wanted. Of course, no code is perfect, but this is a pretty heavily regulated land use. Like,
As it should be.
as it should. So, initially, as we know, we went with the nice sort of model code that was a little too loose, and then all these things came down and happened, and I sort of really stepped up and started doing all these root cause analysis and fire prevention and the governor's work task force and all these things to make it right. And so, and then we've taken those things in and all the best codes and most recent codes from around the country, and FDNY being like the gold standard, and melding it all into one thing.
Yes,
Any
and
other-
and the steering
any other
committee, we
questions?
digested this information, we thought what really applies to us. And this really came about, and this was not created in a vacuum. We're saying there was a lot of new codes were coming in, the fire code is being updated, the international code is being updated as well. So we were
Yes.
taking those recommendations before
And
they're
from you all
actually adopted.
as well. You had a
Yeah.
lot of good comments all along, which was that renewable energy overlay district, which we tried to do initially,
Yeah.
to create like an energy district or
Yeah.
something. But that's just baby steps. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's.
What
I have a
about,
question. So, the A, B, and C is A is sort of unlabeled, and then you have tier 1 and tier 2. How did you decide not to just say tier 1 residential, tier 2 is? And then
Because tier one,
3?
I don't know.
Okay, it's just confusing because when you're
It didn't
thinking
warrant a
one,
tier.
it's.
It was it's so commonplace, that's my thinking. It's
Okay.
It
just like
really
a
should have been
cell phone,
tier
it's
one,
not
tier
a
two,
one
and the other
battery.
one's just not a tier.
Okay, yeah.
So
So
you could make that comment, but I don't know why we did that.
okay, that's a minor one. The other question I had was, a lot of the grid usage is acknowledging that there's a lot of larger homes that, are pulling a lot of power from the grid. How do you, incorporate those? Is the 80 kilowatt hours enough for that, a more sizable home within the town to
Yes.
offset their, okay.
And they do. We have HERS ratings, don't forget, for those mini
Energy
houses.
code.
Yeah.
And mostly all of them can't meet it without the solar. And almost all of the real big houses have the Tesla power walls in them.
And a lot of geothermal.
And geothermal.
Which
is-
So they sort of are doing their own part to
Mhm.
offset their own, they're like their own little thing unto themselves. The bigger thing is uses like you're seeing now coming along, like these data centers or things like those are monster energy hogs. And those kinds of uses suck the grid dry. I don't know what we're gonna do if they ever come here, but I don't think,
Our
so
land is too
there's one
expensive.
trying to be in Yaphank, and I heard they have to use so much water, even the groundwater, to cool them. So like
Cool them.
those kinds of things that are real energy hogs are the ones to be concerned
Interesting.
about.
That's
so
why they're
that leads to
upstate.
my question is, are adjoining towns also adopting a best code?
We are leading the charge so it's been,
I think
So no one-
Brookhaven is allowing it, but everybody else is, the other East End are all.
Riverhead allowed it too. They did not have a
That's
moratorium.
true, yeah.
They are doing that.
They have a code?
They have a code.
What about East Hampton?
East
Moratorium.
Hampton is still in moratorium,
In a
and so is
moratorium?
South
They have two operating now, right?
and
Small
Smithtown.
ones, yeah.
they have the 5
Huntington?
megawatt, yes.
I think, yes, Huntington, because Huntington we talked to. The county has encouraged us to keep talking
Good.
together.
Great.
So that it's a little more
Cape
uniform.
Cod, has any of Cape Cod adopted this? Because it's such a similar,
But I
It's
always
changing
look to them
so
for
quickly.
everything.
yeah.
But we did use Washington State.
Washington State has some exemplary code that I adopted some of the measures from, in particular, some of that language on the aquifer protection. They too had provisions related to that. Michigan is a leader in the space. They put out a lot of great literature, and if anyone is interested, I would say, please, I have put together a big library of information, if you're
Seth
so
is our new
inclined.
battery expert.
So one more question from me. The tier 1 and tier 2 sizing is clear. In terms of the accountability factor that Glorian had brought up, the tier 1 and tier 2 are separated out by the amount of kilowatt hours, but not specified serving one building or, versus linking to the community grid. And it might be good to specify that, because you could have the permitting or the accountability of maintenance and decommission either flow with the property or with the entity in terms of the community ones that are plugged into the grid.
You mean like CCA or something? Or do you mean just, once you tie into the grid, you're regulated by LIPA too? Like, don't forget that that's like really stringent regulations there.
So I was just confused when you were saying tier 1 versus tier 2. The only stipulation in here in terms of the difference is the range of kilowatt hours. It's not whether you're plugged into the grid or not. Or is that just you're relying on the economics of that situation?
You could be connected to the grid at 500 kilowatts.
Certainly.
But we're not getting into it as though that qualifies you as a facility. You know what I mean?
It's more retail,
It's a
in the sense of,
retail, yes,
Yeah,
that's the perfect word.
small. Yeah.
It's
Smaller.
really hard to
Even though it-
regulate the usage, quite honestly.
Like, basically, the whole industry is like 600 and above is what we are worried about, or not that we're not worried about. There's still state building code. There's still all these fire codes about every size, even
Right.
20 kilowatt. So, but it's when you start aggregating them, once you get to 600, that's where you're like, wait a minute, all this. Whereas below that, it's smaller, it's accessory to, they have to prove their energy use in the first place. So it's hard to even get to that higher number because they only get whatever they're using. Like, you don't get to now inject, you're not going to be ISO, like operating, like selling on the grid your little excess battery storage capacity as a supermarket. You're just backing up what you need.
Well, that's like.
Right, so there is that delineation then up to 600
Yeah, and it
is
Low.
not linking to the grid, right? Versus
It could link to the grid, but it doesn't, it's accessory to your use, and there's a whole
Yeah,
section.
so we have a
about
section that says, in a business district,
Yeah, well,
your
it's like
average
solar.
daily load that you consume on the amount of electricity you use on your site, you can have, because of the way kilowatts go to kilowatt hours, 24 times that load, because it's probably in kilowatts, so then we make it kilowatt hour. That's the battery you'd be allowed. And it can't violate 600. That's the max, that would be the max, but you would be allowed no greater than that. Let's say if it was beneath 600, it was, I won't play with the math, but do you follow?
Yeah, and so, again, just circling back, what is, from what I understood of what you were saying in terms of maintenance and decommissioning, would be a condition of approval, which really doesn't travel with the code, it's our discretion, or is that part of the special exception?
We
I see what you're getting at.
We
I
want to
just think
solidify what they're responsible for and not make it up to interpretation of whoever's ever sitting in the seat.
In
I
other
think
words,
that's important.
let's use our supermarket example. We have a supermarket, and they are like, here's our 24 times our whatever. This is our accessory battery, and we want to put it in our accessory setback. And you go, is this appropriate, adequate for the use? You go through the general standards. It's not situated in a way that we're not going to like it, and you are going to grant the site plan special exception approval. You would then have conditions related to its removal. Like if it's, you would just be saying that battery, if you're no longer a supermarket, you have no rights to that.
Like a deer
It's gotta
fence.
go. It's tied to the use because it's accessory to that use, and it's located there as an accessory use to the primary. So when you give that special exception for it to be accessory to, you are also going to put, conditions about its removal when the use goes away.
Right.
So it's not commissioning, decommissioning,
It's not
like,
that size. Yeah, it's
like
that
those
small.
terms are utility terms.
Right.
And so we're not going to worry about them having this. It's like having a generator. You
Yeah.
think of it like that at that level. It's not the same
Janice,
as having a.
do you have a ZBA opportunity in any of this or not?
Every zoning code has to have a relief valve in order for it to be constitutional. Otherwise, there would be
Yes.
no zoning. So
Any comments from us to the town board?
So
Yeah, but
I think my comment would be that with residentials, there's a lot of open space parcels, unbuildable maps, old file maps. I'm thinking of this corridor in West Hampton, all those LI parcels, they back up to old file maps that will not be developed, but many of them, much of it is owned by the county, but yet you're constraining these sites because they're within 300 feet of a residential zone. I'm wondering if some language could be augmented to look at parcels, to exempt parcels that are otherwise not in residential zones but are not going to be developed. I'm thinking of specifically open space parcels, old file map parcels, because as Jackie's right, it's going to be a rush to the ZBA to get relief from those types of
It's
provisions.
literally not even allowed. It's an avoidance area at that point.
But the language now is 300 feet from residential zone parcels. But a lot of times you have a residential zone parcel, it's an old file map, it's owned by the county, but yet it doesn't qualify.
It doesn't matter though, because once you're adjacent, property line to property line, the LI parcel is avoidance now. It cannot, just because we're not, cell tower regulations start talking about like, well, if it's vacant, you know, the fall zone and how you are if you're next to vacant platted or unplatted or blah, blah. We're not even saying that. It's just, if this is residential, if it's an old file map or open space or whatever, we don't care. It's just
disqualified.
adjacent, it's
But wouldn't
disqualified.
that open more opportunity, wouldn't that provide more opportunity to siting these facilities?
But the town board doesn't want to locate it anywhere near a residential anything, even if it's.
Even though
open
they're
space.
residentials, my point being they're residentially zoned, but they cannot be built. They're open
Do you
space
want to
parcels.
make that your comment, that like, if
I
that
think
maybe to expand
It should-
opportunities?
And I don't have the language, I can't offer any language now, but, you know, maybe staff, the department could think of augmenting some language to make a provision for parcels that are in the residential zone but cannot ever be developed. Either they're county open space, town open space, old file maps, sending sites, which,
So
Yeah.
you're saying where an LI 40 abuts an open space parcel or some other
Correct.
restricted or preserved parcel?
Right.
I think that's
Then
tricky.
you have the argument that says,
can always
but that's
change.
just as dangerous because,
Yes,
you know,
There
I
might be
kinda always
residential
imagine
zones
that.
next to it that's built.
can't be built residentially.
No,
If that's the intent, is to keep it away from residential zones, and you're not gonna have any residences there. I'm just thinking that it might open up more opportunities to siting,
How about I write, if any LI parcels adjacent to residential open space where no residential uses will be permitted are
Right.
available,
Or something
this
like
should be
that.
considered.
but how can
They
we
should at
say
least
that?
discuss it.
Open,
They,
yeah.
like we're having the discussion, they should have.
You know,
I'm just thinking, I'm trying to preclude,
but why do we need more sites?
I'm
Dennis?
trying to preclude
There are
that.
32 sites. Why do we need more? You want 60? You know,
I think
the
just-
intent is not to increase the number of sites, is to
Well-
manage what we've got.
And I
The
think
The intent is good
the
play-
word
good
residential
layout
is
and
gonna
siting.
create,
But, you know, you could have an old file map that's sending and suddenly somehow or another it becomes receiving. It's, well,
Well, and that's where
I've
the
got a lot of
ZBA
I'm trying to
process is
avoid,
for
I'm
if
trying to
someone
avoid the march to the
encounters that.
ZBA, because I know it's, you know, that's exactly where they're gonna go. And, oh, by the way, we'd like relief from these other provisions in addition, you know. We should try and tighten the codes, so you leave less of a window, an opportunity to seek relief.
well, then say that it's not permitted,
Well, yeah,
as
no,
opposed
this is,
to permitted.
any one of these provisions can be, you know, appealed to the
Challenged,
ZBA.
yeah.
Variances. And that's probably gonna be the primary one. Their argument's gonna be, look, even though we're within 300 feet, this property next to us is county open space.
but the chances of that being adjacent to the grid is probably slim. So the.
Because it's
that's
usually
where
pretty
I was
far
gonna
away.
say,
I would take it on, or the way that we've done this from the get-go is, let's look at the maps, let's get the hosting capacity map out
Ideally.
and say, let's put those parameters in and see if anything is generated. That way we can just either rule this out as a non-starter, or this actually has some
But the
potential.
parcels are in flux. Sometimes the parcel comes up, the county ends up taking a piece, or we do a residential subdivision, and there's an open space next to it. So what exists today might not exist 10 years from now.
If you consider that, and it's something that the town board is interested in moving forward on, I would want that to come back to this board with the map, so we could
see what the
really,
ramifications.
no. There's no harm in asking a question, but if that question is asked with the implication that we want it to be answered yes, I think that's a little dangerous without
Yeah.
seeing what that looks
Right.
like.
Also, I mean, there are situations, and it won't be specific, but where you have a residential. I mean, residential can crop up just about anywhere, even though people say it'll never happen, you know. It can happen. And so if we prohibit this from what you're talking about is one thing, but because property is in flux here,
Well, for that matter, zone changes can occur also. I mean,
that's true.
anything can happen anywhere, but county, open space purchases by the county, there's general consensus that cannot be developed residentially. I mean, there's alienation and everything.
One of the criteria also here is to look at its proximity to like woodlands. Because maybe there's a point in time where that doesn't make sense. Like the parcel may be LI, but it could be in the middle of the Pine Barrens, and you're like, you
I
need
think
to
that time
sit
might be
down.
right
Yeah.
now.
So what you're saying makes sense, but then if those are like open space parcels and they're wooded, and now like even though no one's going to live there, you know, we don't want to.
Do you want to?
It's a
Pine
little
Barrens fire.
precarious there too.
Yeah,
So
Pine
I'm not
Barrens.
sure. We're happy to put down whatever you want. You can think that through. We have
Well, why
time.
don't
You
we,
don't have to adopt anything today.
we don't have to do anything today. We, on the 27th, we have
Well,
another
I would say
session.
this. It would be great if you at least maybe do something related to the repeal entirely.
Okay,
Because that's the special exception standards that the moratorium is based on. So once that, and I hope they could adopt that on the, at that night, hopefully,
27th.
the 27th. And then all this new stuff we have time for.
A little bit, but we're kind of shooting to get it wrapped up in the next couple weeks
We
after
can
that.
come back in the next meeting with a,
The 22nd, yeah.
actual resolution and we can.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
talk
we
through.
want to do the repeal and the replacement at the same time, so you're not kind of in the wind until we?
You can, I'm just saying the repeal, I think we all agree. Those
Yeah.
standards are not
Yeah, it
germane
doesn't
anymore
work
and they
anymore.
should be repealed.
Right, but you can't take it away and not have something to put.
No, you're not replacing them. You're creating a whole new article and placing it somewhere else. It
What-
was
That article
repealed.
What
is
you're
not
saying is there gonna be
there.
a space, there gonna be a time frame where nothing exists.
It's like
Yeah.
taking
No
a
old,
bucket
no new.
away from a dripping
It's
thing and saying, we'll put
prohibited.
the bucket
Our
back
It
later.
would just
prohibited,
go,
so
it would just be gone. You wouldn't be able to apply.
it's just enough, they can't do anything.
Then they can't do anything.
I'm more concerned with trying to time it with the expiration of the moratorium. You can't do anything.
But I'm saying, let's say you said, yeah, we agree that 330-162.21 should be repealed.
yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
there's,
They could repeal it that night.
I don't think
And
there's a
then I
problem.
think they'll have new comments
And
on
then they
Article
won't be able to
33.
move
So the
forward.
moratorium's still in
No.
place, so they can't build anything in this vacant.
The moratorium is based on the code that's going to be repealed. The moratorium is to say, stop, that code can't be invoked. If you don't have a code, it's prohibited.
Okay.
So do you
thank
want to write that language up and we can vote on it later?
Yeah,
Yeah,
certainly.
I mean, I don't think we have
That
an
the
issue with
planning
that.
board's in
We can
support of the
vote on
repeal.
this.
Yeah.
Vote on it today, at least then they can close that hearing,
Yeah.
that specific one. And then you can
And
have
then
more
on the
thoughtful
22nd, we'll
comments for
have
the
more
others.
comments, yeah.
Yeah.
But this was very
That takes
helpful.
care of that.
Thank you for doing it. This work was
Sorry
not
to
easy.
take so much
Yeah,
time.
Janice, thanks.
Important
Thank
too.
you,
Can we
Seth.
do it again on the 22nd?
An abbreviated version.
Abbreviated, much abbreviated.
Yeah,
We'll have,
much abbreviated.
some
Okay, but this is
language for
great.
you. Okay, great.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for all your work on
Thank you,
this.
Thanks for your work.
Seth,
Look at all
Thanks
those
for all your
Post-it
work on
notes.
Do you dream about this at
Janice
night,
has
Seth?
too.
Again, sorry?
You dream about this at night?
I think about batteries a lot. I really do.
Okay, so I'm closing the work session, going back into the regular session. And we have Seth, don't go away.
Yep, I'm just putting on my other hat.
Francis Mulvey.
One in West Hampton.
Yeah, West Hampton, 7 Percy Avenue.
7 Percy Avenue, 2-lot subdivision.
Is there someone here? Hi, how are you? And your name for the record, sir?
Robert Marcinsick, O'Shea Marcinsick and Bruin, 250 North Sea Road, Southampton for the applicant.
That's it?
We can pass
Oh,
that.
sure. Okay, so this, we discussed this subdivision at the last meeting. We had gone over the draft final approval and looked through some of the referrals that had been submitted to the planning board. There were 2 items that were of interest to the planning board that we were going to explore a little bit
Do we have a map
further.
up?
That's it.
That is it. And you'll see on the back of the conditional approval, I have attached 3 maps, actually, of the site. Because one of the things that came up was the that the Conservation Division had recommended a 50% clearing limitation. And the planning board had thought that maybe a 20-foot wildlife corridor was in order. Sorry, that's for you.
Nice.
So I was unsure exactly to what extent the planning board wished to see that corridor. So I had put 3 different iterations together. You have I was for sure about the north-south line there. And then I had put 2 different styles for.
Just hold it up, what you're talking about, just.
Oh, so this line being the north-south, that was a 20-foot wildlife corridor that I think you guys had proposed. On number 2, I had put the center line, which was the dividing line between the 2 of the proposed subdivision. I had put that to the south, so it was primarily in the vacant lot. The last iteration, I had put it straddling the division line, so that it was fairly equal between the 2.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Right.
so I did calculate out the different, this is not, it's the inverse of the way we usually talk about it. This is the amount of land protected, not the amount of developable.
Yeah.
And Kate, I believe you'd asked what was the level of clearing on lot 1 being the top one. I calculated at about 62%. So,
It's not an APOD, so
No, it's not.
you're not constrained by percentages.
no,
I think the straddling is better, don't you?
I mean, as I said, straddling,
They
One that
seem-
goes through the middle.
They both seem
Yeah.
to be straddling. I'm confused.
Parcels
One
is
goes
buried.
right through the middle and.
Otherwise, the other
this-
parcel is
this
burdened.
changes.
yes.
Warburton with,
Yeah.
with 2 of these.
With the straddling, lot 1 would have 4,900
Right.
square feet. Yeah, that's option 3.
option 3, right?
Yep.
That's fine.
And, okay, so, and the 7,500 in lot 2.
So basically, yeah,
So I will put that in the resolution to be shown on the maps and as a covenanted item.
Number
Not
3.
buffer. Not the service buffer.
wildlife buffer, that's what you refer to it as, right, or something like that.
Yes.
Do you want to go through the rest of it?
Yeah, of course.
Are we on action deadline?
Yes, today is
Okay.
the action deadline. Yeah, so I won't go back over the referrals as we touched on all those at the last meeting. But I would like to call out, I guess, the resolution.
We're at.
Right.
Did you have
So-
to bring sewage credits in for this?
Pardon me?
Did you have to bring sewage credits in?
Yeah, we did,
Yes.
You did? Oh.
Yeah. for the health department, yes. We
Same
did.
groundwater
We have
zone, right?
Pine Barren Crest, which we brought in, which I gave to,
Yes.
Okay.
They were presented to the planning board. I saw a copy of the credit.
Before you get into the resolution, can I just make one request or whatever, with respect to item number 3, which has to do with submission of contract proof of payment to Suffolk County Water Authority for the installation of water mains and hydrants. My client has been advised by, the Capital Projects Coordinator, Stephen Huber, at the Suffolk County Water Authority, that they have gone out to bid, actually, to extend the main and to put hydrants in, to extend the main down Mulvey, I'm sorry, not Mulvey, Percy, yeah.
Yep.
Mulvey's the client.
The county, the Suffolk County Water Authority is doing that.
Right.
Right.
So if we could add language that says, that either he will pay for them or provide proof that they're going to be installed pursuant to
A county
a grant,
plan.
right?
Yeah.
A grant received by the Water Authority.
Can I just interject here, not to create a problem, if you
Yes.
would just be aware of it, that's okay. We don't know when the county's gonna do it, but if they're doing it, that's
They're
great
out to
for
bid
them.
right now. They
That's
said it was
good,
supposed to be
my
done
only
this
concern
summer.
is,
We
if
can't
you
peg
go-
it to that.
if you go to file, your map from the health department shows the water main extension. If you go to get a building permit tomorrow, you have to go to the health department, their map shows a water main extension. So if so you're not gonna get a permit for the health department to build a septic and a new
Mhm.
house unless that water's put in.
That's been done.
So I don't think this is necessarily your issue per se, but I
Right.
wanna let the applicant know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So,
Understood.
so we should not include
Submission of a
language.
contract, so we're changing that to the proof of, that a grant
No,
has
I
been-
mean,
I
the
just
language
wanna-
that you picked is okay, It's fine because you're just tying it to the work getting done. I'm just saying he could have an issue with the health department when he goes to get
Right,
the building permit.
unless you get a
As long
letter.
as it gets done, you don't care how it gets done. I mean, we do, obviously, but,
Right.
obviously it might impact our
So where
ability
did
to
you,
get a.
where did you put that,
approval.
Seth?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is on point 3, in the be it resolved, submission of a contract and proof of payment for a grant in lieu of,
Give us the exact language so that we can vote on it.
On the back of the second page, number 3.
yeah, so submission of a contract, a proof of payment, or a grant provided,
Proof of a grant.
or proof of a grant.
No, I would
Wait,
say
who's getting,
proof of the contract of the county's intention to bring in the water,
that they're installing it,
that they're installing it.
right? The grant doesn't, how they fund it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah, yeah. Who knows what the money's gonna be spent?
Okay, so how are we wording that? Submission of a contract?
Or a letter of commitment from Suffolk County Water Authority that they are intent
Award
to
of a contract.
install the,
Award of a contract.
usually it would be a letter of commitment, right? If it's from another party,
Okay.
council?
Is that what it would be,
Yeah,
a letter of,
They award contracts.
so it's a submission of a contract?
And then they award the contract. for that
Submission of a
project.
contract from the Suffolk County Water Authority for installation of water mains and hydrants as shown on the final plat? Is that good?
That sounds appropriate to me.
Okay.
So until Suffolk County Water Authority awards that contract, you're not
You're
approved
liable.
fully, you're in limbo.
And is it one hydrant?
Yes, it is one hydrant, and, yeah, that was the other
Isn't
point I
there one right
wanted.
across the street? Is this the one that was?
Yes, that's correct. We needed one north of the highway. Did we
Right.
decide on the final location?
Well, I think prefer, whatever,
The one that
the
was
one that
down.
was like in front of the,
What was
the
the
one
one?
like, I think
Okay.
it's right
So
around.
you'll indicate
front of
that
the
on this,
proposed lot.
on this subdivision map?
So that'll be indicated as one of the,
Yes,
one of the changes to the map.
and indicate
I have that on there.
location. Where is that a separate?
That's on the changes to the map, yes. So, following are the map changes, remove all the building envelopes, propose structures from the final map. We will revise the note that pertains to a declaration of covenants and restrictions. We will also revise the note that pertains to the zoning board of appeals. Show the postal street addresses obtained from the town tax assessor. Note the size of the proposed water mains, label the location of the blow-off valves as may be required by the SCWA. I will be changing this next stipulation to show that we were going to be adopting option 3 and which I guess will attach, somehow I'll have to
Where is that
delineate
language?
that. That would be indicate the site disturbance will be limited to and I will list out a north-south 20-foot wildlife corridor in addition to east-west, and I will try to follow in the property lines, et cetera, et cetera.
So north-south and an
North-south,
east-west,
yes.
2 wildlife corridors,
Yes.
3.
3 in total, yes.
Okay, so limited 3 wildlife
3
corridors.
wildlife corridors and how they adhere to the property line and
Okay.
the dimensions. Indicate the fire, the final fire hydrant location on Percy. Part 2 would be that prior to the building permit, the installation of the fire hydrant in accordance with the town standards and.
Fire hydrant, you need the word hydrant. Installation of the fire, you have.
Oh, did I cross out the hydrant? I'm sorry. In accordance with the town standards and location shown on the final plat as recommended by the West Hampton Beach Fire District shall be required. A submission of a contract and proof of payment
From the Suffolk County Water Authority.
for the award of a contract letter of commitment, and we're putting that in there as well, from the Suffolk County Water Authority for the installation of water mains and hydrants. The applicant shall comply with all the recommendations of the engineering division prior to the signature of the final plat. Submission of a certificate of abandonment, payment of the park fee of $2,500, and the following covenants and declarations.
Why don't you say park fee for one lot?
Park fee for one lot, okay? The covenants and restrictions will read as such: no further subdivision of any lots into additional building lots, no lot line modifications without planning board approval on all lots. All new utilities shall be installed underground, including cable, vision, electric, and telephone services on all lots. No new utility poles for overhead utilities or services on all lots. Installation of fire hydrants or the establishment, installation of fire hydrants in accordance with the town standards in a location shown on the final plat as recommended by the West Hampton Beach Fire District prior to building permit. The 3-inch drainage for all future impervious surfaces, including roofs, driveway, and tennis courts. Retention of stormwater runoff, erosion sediment control during and after construction, and compliance with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, federal and state threatened northern long-eared bat regulations. I don't know, I'm missing a word there. Submission of title certification, submission of mortgage consent, town attorney approval on all legal documents, the submission of four Mylar prints, submission of all aforesaid documents prior to planning board signature, and the recording of maps and documents within 62 days.
And they did an archaeological review.
Yes, we did make sure to go back and get that done after.
Okay, is that in this report
We did it,
somewhere?
yes.
It's
Sorry?
in here somewhere this mentions it?
Probably the findings.
I didn't mention it because nothing was found. I can certainly put in
I
that
think it's
an
important.
archaeological study was performed. That would be a whereas statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A finding, yeah.
Whereas the applicant conducted a phase 1A and 1B, and with no archaeological significant artifacts or structures found.
Okay. Robert, do you have any other questions? Any other questions from the board? Okay. Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor and 1 absent. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seth. Teresa. The bridge.
Hello.
I have this in two places, right?
Take one and pass it down.
Right, so,
Oh, here's another one.
Lisa Mason from
George is
planning.
coming, Tom, if you wanna.
This is
Slide on
31 The
over.
Bridge. I'm not sure if we have anybody here in the audience or
Maybe
if
on
they're on
Zoom.
Zoom. But this is also number 14 on the agenda.
Yep.
It is a multi-pronged application, an amended site plan application, a covenant amendment, and a
Yeah.
site disturbance application. The applicant is located in the Bridgehampton Road Races subdivision. They have APOD clearing restrictions. There is site plan requirements because of the slopes. And there was some issues with disturbance to the existing slopes. They came up with a revegetation plan that was acceptable to our office and the Chief Environmental Analyst's office. At the last meeting, there was concerns regarding the recommendation to have further restrictions on clearing of the site, less than the 35% pursuant to the site plan. So based on our discussion at the last meeting, rather than having a blanket statement saying your clearing is now 30%, we have made the resolution revised conditioned on submission of a covenant that says any site disturbance or site regrading has to come back in to the planning board for site plan review, any
Okay.
clearing.
That might be a point of contention.
Didn't we
That's
say
what
that the
they
slopes,
agreed to.
the slopes, the slopes,
Right, the slopes.
the slopes, we have to use the
Not
word the
entirely
slopes,
the site, the slopes.
Right.
that the slopes are not to be touched.
Let me double check, and if not, I can revise the wording. Indicating land disturbance inclusive of clearing, grading, and or construction will require site plan. in the slopes. In the slopes.
Can you give it the exact wording?
They sent over a covenant that meets what I'm saying, so.
So I think we're talking about that, if we were gonna say on the sloped areas, we would say as or as noted on the
On
site
the site,
plan,
that's what we
right?
did.
Because,
That's
yeah,
what their covenant
okay.
says.
Okay.
But we want the word slopes in here.
All right, I'll amend it
Okay,
accordingly.
just add it, yeah.
So I'll just say a draft covenant indicating any land disturbance inclusive of clearing, grading, and/or construction in the slopes as noted on the site plan will require site plan review, and it shall be submitted for review and approval by the town attorneys prior to filing with the Suffolk County Clerk's Office and submission of a certified copy to the town. And then all the rest of the conditions are the standard conditions, such as submission of the revised site plan documents with the conditions listed, the applicant's signature statement, the as-built survey after revegetation, and final inspection.
Do we want to say a draft covenant, or it's a covenant? Have you seen
already
it,
has the
approved
draft.
it?
Sent a draft, I'll add, it said something, I don't remember the exact language, but it was according, without, further site plan approval from the planning board. I don't know if they, we just have to add the site plan that's being approved, the date and the site plan.
On the
For the
covenant, or do you
covenant?
want that in the?
We're gonna put in the covenant.
Perfect. So
Okay, so
I'm amending it as we just discussed, and then she's gonna have the draft covenant amended to include the reference to the site plan.
So how does the new requirement that we've had to put project limiting fence tie into this? How do we make sure that?
Well, and if
Stays with-
except that is applicable, it's gonna apply to anything.
Right, in this particular instance, it's not applicable because the grades have already been
Done.
modified.
it's already been done.
But that was a note that I had for myself, in that when we see resolutions, and I think that should be included in every resolution where there's an APOD piece of land. I know that's our process, but shouldn't we actually delineate it to make sure that that actually happens?
I don't disagree, but in this particular instance.
I'm just bringing it up because we're
Yeah.
discussing.
And that's what we discussed. So in
Yes.
our future resolutions where we have site plan and potentially even subdivisions, we can add, we will be adding that.
I'm pretty sure what I read today, or for today, has some clearing, APOD, sorry.
Okay, so we want
So
to make sure that it's included.
that's why I made the note, because I didn't see it in anything I read for today's meeting. And so,
Right, so
I'm just
not in
gonna-
this particular instance, but
Correct,
for
yeah.
any particular.
so I'm just gonna look for that as we go through
Good,
this
that's great.
afternoon.
Okay.
So we want to do the two items?
I have them in three,
I don't know why it's not on there.
it's in three
It's
places.
three actions. It's approving the site plan, the amended
Okay.
site plan. It's also approving the covenant amendment for the common driveway, which you agreed was acceptable, and also the site disturbance application. It's all in one resolution. It's across the board.
So best to adopt it in one?
You can do that, Claire, right?
Claire, best to adopt this in one?
Sure, it would just have to be 3 resolved.
You could do that.
Yeah, I believe that's what I have,
Yeah.
but I'm not 100% sure. Yes, I have 3 resolves.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, you have it down here,
Yeah,
items,
they're
okay. All right, any other conversation? We don't have it, they're aware of what we're doing, the applicant?
Yes, yeah, we've had emails back and forth all day.
Okay.
Zoom,
Are they
I
on
got the
Zoom,
impression they
Kevin?
were gonna be here, but-
No one has their hand up.
Okay.
Oh.
all right,
Okay.
let me know it.
So motion to approve
Motion,
the bridge site plan disturbance covenant amendment by Gloria, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thanks, Teresa, for working
Thank you,
that
Teresa.
out. Anthony, 1052 Noyak?
Yes, you have the report for a few weeks now, but the
Yes.
attorney today requested an adjournment, he couldn't be here, so what we're gonna do, and this one's gonna require, him being here to have discussion, so we'll do an
Okay.
extension of the action deadline until May 22nd.
Motion.
Extension to May 23rd. Motion by Dennis, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Claire, Citron 19, Montauk.
Yeah, so I think John Wagner is here for that one in the 5.
Sending me over now.
Perfect. So this is pretty straightforward. Everybody familiar with this? That was the nightclub, and it turned into 11 condo units. One of the units is affordable, which is great. There was just tidying up now. We issued the first couple COs on it, but one of the provisions of the covenant, which wasn't in your resolution, said it's required an affordability covenant, but the covenant went on to say that none of the units could be rented, even the non-affordable ones. So there's no restriction. I don't think you have any problem if they get the proper rental permits, they could rent it. So the applicant is here, John Wagner.
Yes, can you hear me?
So he asked for an amendment to the covenant. Now, when we looked at the covenant, it also has some things that language is not really correct. So I had Kara look at it too. She had no, as the housing director, she had no objection to the 10 of the units being able to rent it. The one for affordable has to be owner occupied, so that will continue in the covenants. And then she did say that there was some restrictive language in there. She said had to do with that the unit for affordable could turn back into market rate if they brought a credit in, and that it's apples and oranges. In this case, it's affordable because of the ZBA decision.
In perpetuity.
It wasn't some kind of like bonus density incentive or anything like that. So we're going to change that covenant language too. So John Wagner prepared a document. I do have them. I have all the old one, the new one for you. I did give it to Christine today to take a peek at too. But subject to Kara looking at the final one, just like she would do for any of these. Make sure the language is good.
What I just heard you say, these were all rentals, and one of them was,
Condos. It's 11 condos.
but they're rentals.
The owner could get a rental permit and rent it out per our code.
But I think I heard you say that the affordable unit has to be owner occupied.
Correct.
So that means that the owner of the development has to live there?
No, the owner of the unit has to live there. They're being sold it to that as affordable.
I heard was rental, so I did not
Yes.
realize they were being sold.
They're condos, so people buy the condo units. What he's asking for is to allow them, just like any house, any condo in the town of Southampton, that they could go and get a rental permit to allow somebody else to rent their
The
condo.
individual owner, similar to the covenant amendment for the place on Montauk Highway by Carvel.
Yes,
Okay.
very similar to that. Yep.
Claire, maybe, or John can respond to this. Do you need to modify the prospectus with New York State if it's a condominium prospectus that allows for the rental of the unit?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Yeah, a little bit louder, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to yell a little bit. Yes, my office is handling the offering plan documentation with the state. So my partner is actually handling that, but we are going to be addressing that. That's actually how this came up, that we came across this declaration that was inconsistent with what was been proposed to the state on this matter.
Do we need to have that before we can act on this, or?
No, but we can make a reference to it and say that the offering plan should be amended to be consistent with the covenant. Does that make sense, John?
Yes, what we're going to do is, when we have the amended covenant will be incorporated with the documents on file with the state going forward.
Do you need approval
Basically,
from the state?
It's designed to substitute for the prior recorded declaration, which doesn't really not make any sense.
I'm going to say it's to be made part of the amended offering plan. Does that make sense?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, and then subject to Karaback's final approval before filing.
Okay, great.
Okay. So yeah, I have a resolution to that effect. Speaks about how this happened and and the amendments.
Do you have it, Claire?
I do have a copy if you'd like to do this. And I would just add the changes.
So do you expect that modification to come through quickly, or John?
I'd like to act on it as quickly as possible, yes, because it is holding up some of the processes we have with the state right now.
You have enough? I have one more.
Okay, so we're tying our approval into
Yes.
the approved modification by the state on the modified prospectus.
Right, so if you see, I went to the whereases and I didn't do the resolved, but I will say the planning board reviewed the amendments language and found the same to be acceptable, and say resolve, the planning board hereby approves the amendment to the covenant to permit the non-affordable units to be allowed to be rented. I should say pursuant to the code, right?
Claire, you want to add more to this and then come back a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can do that.
yeah, because it's too much amending.
That's fine.
I would feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, John, I'll just bring it up. And I'm sorry, John, you should introduce yourself and with your company too.
Yes, I'm John Wagner. I'm the attorney for the applicant for the modification.
And then I'll amend this. I'll bring the language back this
Okay.
afternoon.
Perfect.
Great, thank you.
Claire.
Thank you.
Teresa, Rivian.
I'm gonna stay here because we're gonna tag team with the next one too.
Okay, good. Teresa and Claire. They're
Do you have the plans, Teresa?
I don't actually have the plan.
working away.
Yes.
Are they on stage in your thing so we can put it up? Yes, come on up with your plans.
So actually, this discussion ties in with the next one as well. So for Chrysler Jeep.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So these are, Rivian lot owns 2 lots, one Montauk Highway, Watermill, and then 769 County Road 39. Yes.
So this
39.
is the design there.
Is this the cross access?
Yeah, they're right on my desk.
Okay, I'm gonna
So-
grab the plans.
Again, there was some back and forth regarding the cross access for the Rivian site over the vacant parcel to the Chrysler Dodge
Right.
Jeep dealership site. We had approved a plan that showed it bringing it along the back of the vacant parcel. And it was determined afterwards that that wasn't really workable for the adjacent parcel. So at the last public hearing for the Jeep Chrysler, which was May 8th, I believe. Is that right? No,
that's
April
today.
8th. or
Today's
April,
May 8th.
April 10th. Sorry, I got the dates all mixed up. So the public hearing for Chrysler Jeep was on April 10th. There was some back and forth discussions during the public hearing. And after the public hearing, there were some further discussions between our office and the 2 applicants. And an alternative plan was submitted and provided and discussed. And you have a copy of that alternative plan from the Chrysler Jeep dealership. And Claire just ran down to get the Rivian end. I have a letter indicating that they have agreed, Rivian has agreed to the amended plan with Jeep Chrysler. And they submitted that, and that's dated May 5th, 2025. I'm sorry, May 1st, 2025, and it was prepared by Dynamic Engineering. They submitted an amended site plan application to go with that, and I am. You'll see here it says, whereas the planning board finds that there shall be no exit from the property onto Montauk Highway or County Road 39. Exit only permitted over cross access. And then it approves the amended site plan, which again Claire is bringing up. The conditions outlined by this resolution are generally consistent with the previous one. They're still working away, so I didn't want to eliminate all the conditions that were held by the first resolution. But mainly it adopts this new cross-access.
And they're both in agreement.
And they're both in agreement.
So are we on Rivian or are we on Chrysler Dodge?
We're on Rivian, technically.
Is there a map that shows both
So Claire went to grab the Chrysler Dodge because I forgot to bring it up. Not Chrysler Dodge.
We have-
Rivian.
Yeah,
Rivian
because
Mac-
this is,
We have the Chrysler
we have
Dodge.
Chrysler,
Yes, you
that's
have
what
it.
got me confused.
Yes, she's getting the Rivian project plans. I
Oh, okay.
apologize. And it shows technically all 3 parcels.
Okay.
Okay.
So Teresa, coming down that side of the building, coming down the side of the Chrysler building, there are a whole stand of trees. So I'm a little, are they going to be taking those trees away? Or?
No, I believe there's just going to be a small area where the trees may have to be removed, and then it would, you know.
Okay, because you can see it on the, if we can blow that up, Anthony. You see the stand of trees on that side of the building?
Right, and that area is wide enough to accommodate the 2 lanes of traffic.
Here we are.
Sorry. So I don't believe they're going to have to remove that many trees. They may have to share 1 or 2, but shouldn't be that many.
Welcome.
Make it a little easier.
Oh, it shows the big tree.
So,
It shows the big tree remaining. Yeah.
We like
okay,
that.
this is Rivian.
Yeah,
So you can see the map does show all 3 parcels, including
So
the
for Rivian, they're
Chrysler.
gonna enter here.
The fencing up already, I know that.
That was our main
It goes
concern.
all the way around.
Yes,
and
no
down.
entry for-
And then in front, they exit in front.
Right. And now keep in mind, the lot in between the 2 lots is vacant, so at some point, the cross-access may be further reconfigured.
Yeah,
But at this point in time, this works for both.
both of them.
Is there any signage or modification of that curb cut to discourage left turns from
Yes, it was on the site plan. There's no left, I believe there's signage that says no left turns.
entering the site from the other side?
It's going to, see, it's modified. So you
I'm
can't.
wondering, should we
Should
sort
it be
of
channelized and
channelize it somehow, or?
No. It is bent a
You know
little,
what?
you can
Yeah, I
see
was
it,
gonna say,
right?
They had said they would do something, and it
Yeah.
looks like a little, not a lot, but.
If the only way to enter is from County Road 39, did we not talk about some sort of signage on the
They
Chrysler?
both show a sign, and then
Yeah.
it'll be subject to your review.
Okay.
Both plans show a sign, Rivian's and
Good.
Chrysler's.
What are we getting, six charging stations on this, on Rivian?
I
6?
believe so, yes.
6.
In the lounge, I think, right?
Right,
the
it's,
building.
right, so somewhere for them to hang out while they're
While
charging their cars.
Okay.
And the whole intent is,
Did we look at a landscaping plan here?
Yes, we approved a landscaping plan.
Okay.
that's
Because
shown
it sure needs it, you know, that,
And I know that they are preparing the application for signage for Rivian. I met with the applicant's designer.
Teresa? Can you hear me?
I don't see a landscaping.
You have someone on
Hi,
Zoom.
Chris. This is, it's the
Could you
applicant's agent.
identify yourself for the record?
Sure. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. If not,
Yeah.
please let me know. Joe Papero from Porzio, Bromberg, and Newman on behalf of Rivian. Obviously, we have our team available. I know there were some planned comments. If there's any questions or comments, we do have our engineer from the original approval that could answer those questions and certainly share the plan on the screen with you. So I didn't want anyone to think we weren't here to answer those questions.
Has anyone reviewed the sign to make sure it serves the purpose?
Not yet, that's gonna come into us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it will. Looks like if this is the side here, that's after where you'd enter. If you're coming this way, coming from the west going east.
I thought there was a location that you spoke about right in front.
Well, it's beyond,
Otherwise, you couldn't do it on, could you do it on the other parcel? I mean, would it
Well,
be
you
the
showed
other
the
parcel?
sign,
Yeah.
Here it is. Mhm.
but
So it's a
will it be
proposed
its own dedicated sign just for Rivian, or
pylon.
will it be part of a menu sign?
It's a
Well,
shared
it's gonna
sign.
have to have some type of direction,
Yeah,
and so they've labeled it directional sign.
So it's
a
an
directional, standalone just for Rivian.
It may be
It's a
a dual
shared.
purpose sign, Rivian this way, Chrysler Dodge this way,
Well, the one-
but
I'm-
I think
Yeah,
that's.
the one on the side, the one
It
here.
says shared,
It's shared.
proposed pylon shared sign.
Mhm.
would it make sense to have Rivian to have its own sign?
I don't know if we want to have more signage.
Well, I'm just wondering, could you have more than one sign without a variance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should look fine. How many? It's Rivian and it's Chrysler Dodge. That's it.
You know, people are gonna be heading to the blue dot. The blue dot's up here. They're gonna be driving that.
So they're
thing.
gonna enter, go
And
all the way
wow, there's
around.
another entrance here.
And then we have a sign here, correct, on the,
Well, that's for westbound traffic.
yeah, for westbound
We
traffic,
wanna
there's a
discourage-
sign.
We want to discourage.
But we want to be able to make a right turn in.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And,
Yeah. But it's only one way in. Right? It's one way
You have
in.
to have a share signed, otherwise
So-
they won't know that they're going into
Right,
either
one way
Chrysler
here,
or
Rivian,
Rivian.
enter.
Wouldn't be fair to one or the other.
And you'll
We
know
could
it's
say-
Chrysler because
Because
Yeah.
Exactly.
the signage will be
But
there.
Claire, we'll have a Rivian sign at the entrance on 27.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and you can only go one way in here, you know? You'll either take advantage of the service and then you'll exit.
I would imagine if it did have both, the Rivian would have like the arrow, obviously, saying
Yes,
go east. And that's,
Or
but you'll be
yes.
reviewing that in the
We'll
next
be-
month when they
right.
come up with it.
okay.
Yeah.
And there are all trees in that area, which is nice, right?
So
Any
again,
landscaping around the building, or there's some trees?
on the Rivian site, yes, there is an extensive landscaping plan that was provided on the original application, and all of that will still hold as part of their site plan.
Okay,
That they're working away on. I did put the conditions, most of the conditions are still holdovers from the last application. Cleaning up the HVAC systems, compliance with the new dark skies lighting code, no PA systems, screening, all of that's as for the last approval. That all holds. This is just approving the cross access.
So it's a separate resolution for, just,
There will be a separate resolution for Chrysler Dodge. This one is just for Rivian,
okay.
and just for the cross access.
just for the cross
Right.
access.
Okay.
But
Is that
again,
the
some of
public-
the conditions were moved over because they're still underway and they haven't implemented some of that.
Okay, so what's our action here?
You're going to adopt the resolution granting conditional approval of the revised cross access plans.
I'll
Okay,
move it.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, motion by Dennis, second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 6 in favor, 1 absent.
You.
And
Tag team.
thank you, Teresa.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
And so we're gonna do Chrysler Dodge.
And Chrysler Dodge
Yes.
next.
So we talked about this one, we did the staff report last meeting. This is the applicant's representative, this is the
How are
plan.
you?
There was 2 versions, sorry, there's only 2, but now we know the cross access is the hard part, right?
I just handed my copy.
And then, so I have a resolution. The other question, the applicant had asked for permission to commence the building permit for the exterior renovations. And then you'd ask for a sample.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
sign, yeah. The signage, are we looking at?
Not-
The
yes.
siding,
This is
The
the siding.
siding. Yeah,
because you guys are interested in the
Yeah.
bamboo and the silvers
Right.
being used.
interesting.
So this is
bamboo.
the,
Yeah, it's
I don't
not
know if
bamboo,
you-
it's on, it's faux on.
Yeah, it's faux.
metal.
Vinyl.
But it's an interesting combination with something
Yeah.
very modern and,
it leaves a
Something
nice
more
textured
rustic.
look, but
Yeah.
it's, same material as the other parts of the siding.
Very attractive.
Yeah, I think so, it's an upgrade.
ARB, like.
ARB approved it. They wanted some adjustments to the signage, so I left the signage as an issue and we need it anyways with the directional sign. Because
many-
ARB needs to approve it, yeah.
how many, you mean the building signs, right?
Yes, yes.
How many do we have up there?
So we have 2 on one side and then technically 1, 2, 3, 4 on the front that's facing 759.
County Road 39.
Yeah, County Road.
So that's, what are they? Chrysler?
Chrysler, Dodge,
Jeep,
and Ram.
and Ram.
Mhm.
Okay, all pretty much the same size, right?
Yes. Yep. I don't know if you want the sheet.
Do we have colors or what?
You're not going to review the sign yet. We
Yet?
need ARB to approve it. They had some questions about sizing. They think they've adjusted them. We're gonna
Okay.
re-refer it, get their comments and do all the signage together. So
Okay.
I have left, I have a whereas in here that you're not approving the sign.
Okay,
We
good.
got a lot of letters for some, and for some less letters, so it'll be interesting
Yeah.
to make it all look
Yeah,
symmetrical.
yeah.
Yeah.
Chrysler,
Dodge, Ram.
Jeep looks huge.
I think that's the one that we might need
Reduced.
to make a little bit smaller. We made the other Jeep sign smaller because that was like 2'10", so we brought it down to 2 feet to match the Southampton sign.
Right,
But
but still more, right? Oh, it'll look nice. So this is the facing, this is facing County Road 39?
That is, and then the other one is facing the interior, but you're allowed to do that because of the cross-access. So you're allowed to have signage on the cross-access side.
Well, it's nice because you don't have a lot of glass with glaring lights coming out.
I did still have that as a condition of approval.
Yes, good.
Good job. But it should be fine in this case.
All right, Claire, so you want to go?
So yeah, we can do the conditions. As I said, I included a whereas just above the resolve that says that the signage needs to be revised per the ARB comments and approved by the ARB prior to the planning board taking action on the signs. And so this would be the approval for the permission, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. The issuance of a building permit for the exterior renovation is shown on the building plans, subject to the following conditions. The two conditions are the submission of an affidavit says that they'll comply to all these conditions with the cross-access and such. And the second one is that permission is not granted for the signage, as I just discussed. So the resolved would be to adopt the May 8th staff report and approve the site plan. And that would be subject to all changes and modifications to the site plan. The staff report did reference 2 charging stations. I think it makes sense, it's a car dealership.
Sure.
So, to indicate that, compliance with Department of Public Safety, and indicate additional plantings in the form of low bushes or grasses south of the cross-access to screen the access driveway. I think it's more active before, there's no landscaping in that site, so we'd want to see
need
something. I did say subject to your approval, but it could be me who looks at it. It's up to you which one. I could look at it, or if you want to look at it. Okay.
I know you want to get moving on this, right? Or you are moving on it.
So I'll place subject to staff approval.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we just wanted, on these charging stations, we want to get like a boilerplate with internal illumination.
Oh, with the signage?
Well, just no, non-illuminated.
Okay.
You know, without internal, you know which ones I'm
Yep.
talking about.
Yeah, without internally illuminated signs. I know, we're wrestling with that, whether to put that in the town code with signage.
Well,
To
right
allow
now we're
them
doing
to
the,
have a small, like, square foot, like, sign on some of these things, but, but,
well, it's illumination we're more concerned with.
mhm,
At night it becomes like glowing, light bulb.
advertisements.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
On number 1, Claire, sorry to go back to that,
That's fine.
on your, before the resolves.
Yep.
The current landowner compliance with the conditions of, should we not say the word cross-access somewhere in that?
Oh, yeah, you can say that,
Yeah.
including cross-access.
Okay.
That's our standard boilerplate language for the affidavit, so I just cut and pasted it here.
Right, so including
I still have it in the rest of the section too.
Okay.
But I can say including cross-access. Yeah, no problem. The general conditions, AFC, HVAC systems to be screened, no dusted dawn lighting fixtures, proposed lighting should be shielded, no public address system, dumpster should be enclosed, and this is the interior lighting shall be designed in such a way to not emit an exterior glow. In addition, any glass used for the front of the building shall be non-glare. Items to be submitted, town engineer fee, submission of cross-access easement between the subject property and the property immediately adjacent to the east from the property owner, title cert, mortgage consent, town attorney approval. I'm gonna cross out F because staff is gonna approve the landscaping. Affidavit 6 sets of plans, and all existing lighting should be brought into conformance. I think the site looks good. I just it's a catch-all, just in case there's some non-conforming lights there. Okay. For your
And you
consideration.
have storage behind the building, correct, of cars?
Yes. They have cars all over the place.
I mean, we never say anything about this, and it's an opportunity to say it. I mean, the cars on the vacant lot are yours or not?
No,
They're not
they're not
yours.
ours.
They're just behind?
It's on our lot, and then we share the lot behind us.
So Rivian, a condition of that approval is those cars on that vacant lot are to be
Those are
removed.
to remove, but I'm just looking at, it's just one row of cars that we're looking at in terms of car storage.
Oh, they have they all work in conjunction. All those 1, 2, 3 sites work in conjunction with each other.
Okay. I mean, I asked the question because they didn't want the cross-access in that direction because they had activity, and it's, so, I'm just curious where the activity is, and have we defined it on our site plan? That's.
So what happens, the concern of the applicant, you want to speak to it or you want me to?
No, it's fine, because I also have the plan, that might be easier to kind of see it, because there's an existing service drive that was like the
Yes.
biggest concern. So at the end of the building, there's people coming and leaving the service drive and causing a lot of traffic, as well as us coming and going from the other site.
Where is
So-
that? Where's the service drive?
So it's at the end of the building,
Can you zoom in a little?
it's over here.
The back end, right
Yeah.
in there? Mm-hmm.
See where the black
Yeah.
part of the roof is?
That's the service.
Yeah,
So you have people coming and going in there,
yeah. The cars are coming in and out for the service.
and they come in from County Road 39 into your regular entrance, right?
Yeah.
I see, so you wanted to keep that lane dedicated to you.
Yeah, because if we had another service, like other cars coming in and out right here, it's just, there's a lot going on.
It's like your back of house, right? So
Yeah.
people come in, they check in at the front desk, and then your like service technicians
I
bring their
see.
cars back to the garage and take care of it. Right?
There's also access in the front of that space as well, so it's,
Yep.
they're coming through.
Can't take comment or public, unless you're with the application.
They're raising their hand.
Oh, someone's raising their hand on Zoom?
Yeah.
Is one of your team on Zoom?
Yes.
I don't know who's on Zoom right now.
Justin Ackerman just raised his hand.
Who did?
Is that Rivian?
What's that?
Okay.
Is it one of your people?
Yes.
It is?
No, Rivian.
It's Rivian,
Rivian.
yeah.
Oh, it's Rivian. Yeah, we finished Rivian.
Yeah, but it's to do with this.
We can't comment.
Think we can't take comment. Yeah.
Even though it's
All right.
incorrect.
Can we reopen Rivian
Well, we
after
can
Dodge?
reopen, yeah, because we have to get more wordage on Rivian, no? Weren't you going to write something?
Sure. I'd like the planner to be here though.
Teresa.
Teresa, yeah, okay. So we can move forward with this. Claire? We can move forward with this?
Yes, we can adopt this, and then if Rivian wants to speak again on their application.
Okay.
they can request. Okay.
Okay, so you have outdoor storage and display. Planning board's concerned with continued violation of the front transition yard.
That's why the plantings. That's why I wanted the plantings. That's another reason besides the screening, is the
Okay.
plantings.
Okay, and we'll look at the sign after.
Sign will be a future design for review.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Any other questions on this? Motion? Motion by Gloria and second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor and 1 absent.
Thank you.
Have we finalized Rivian yet?
You approved the amendment.
The amendment, but
We approved the
did-
cross-access. We
Yes.
approved
we
the
did
cross-access.
But we didn't finalize the site plan yet.
Yes. It's approved,
Yes.
signed,
We've been working on it for a long
Oh, that's
time.
it. I don't
and
know.
a building permit's been issued.
Yeah, I know the building permit. Did we address car parking and the display of vehicles in the front?
You had a very specific, it's not my site plan, but a very specific
Okay,
area
you're
where
finished.
Like, I
those
just
are.
want to make sure
Yes,
you don't need me
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
the car dealership directly to the east has taken upon themselves to park some more.
Directly to the east of Rivian?
Yes.
Oh.
I won't mention any names, but it rhymes with rowdy.
What, I didn't hear what you said.
What did I do?
I-
Parking cars?
On the lawn.
Of the living room?
No.
Oh, of them, yeah.
Displaying
If
their
you
own.
can-
Teresa, we
if you can
just,
do it, if you can get code
Somebody
enforcement.
from Rivian wants to talk,
Somebody
so we have
wants
to
to
open
Rivian.
up Rivian.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I move to open open up the discussion on Rivian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have someone on Zoom?
Hello?
We have 2 people coming on now.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
We're working too fast.
We don't, yeah, there you are. Yes,
Okay.
hi.
Justin Ackerman with Rivian. I just wanted to make a really quick clarification on the conversation that was happening about the vacant lot and the cars that are parked in that location. They are not Rivians. We will make sure that they're cleared out by as a condition of our approval, but current tenants of that Chrysler Dodge location, which I believe is BMW.
Right, that was a condition of your original approval.
Yep.
just
I just wanted
clarifying
to
that it's
make
Chrysler
that
Dodge.
clarification.
Chrysler Dodge, right.
Yeah.
We got
Yep.
it, Justin, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Somebody else.
Joe's on as a panel. Oh, here we go.
No, I'm fine. Justin wanted to speak. I'm Rivian's attorney, so he got out what I wanted to get out, that those are not Rivian cars. Those are the Chrysler Jeep vehicles.
Got it.
Thank you.
Noted.
Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Counsel.
Okay, so we're closing the conversation?
Yeah, so it'll be just, it'll appear on the minutes like a discussion on Rivian.
Okay.
We took the action already.
Yeah, we did
Sorry
that.
to hold you back.
Thanks, Teresa, sorry.
Great night.
You go now.
I don't want to secretly do things to her. Okay.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, Teresa.
Anthony, Charlie Fox.
Yes, so I have the property up here. This is a new application. This is a request for a pre-submission conference. So this is the pre-stage of a site plan special exception application. This is for another cannabis retail. This property is located on the north side of County Route 39, Highway Business. You'll see it's just to the east of the corner of McGee Street. And the rear of this property, you'll see, abuts the school property on McGee Street. And actually, this vacant property is also a school property. We have a letter, and I probably sent it to the board. It'll pop up, I'm sure, when we have the pre-submission conference. There is a letter from the Office of Cannabis Management pointing out their regulations and our regulations. And our regulations mimic theirs, and it says it can't be, a cannabis facility cannot be within 500 feet and on the same street as a school. And so that's how our regulations are written. So the Office of Cannabis Management notes that school is not located on the same street, and their license was issued and so forth, and they indicate compliance with that standard. I'm aware it's abutting the school. I'm aware that there's general special exception standards.
General
It's
standards.
going to have to consider, one of them being, is it appropriately, not appropriate, inappropriate.
What is the special, what is the second
General-
special standard state?
The general
That
standard
the-
isn't
that the
appropriate
general,
for the
that the
area.
planning board shall find that it's not unsuitably located near a school, place of worship, a community center, and so
Right.
forth. So that's an
So that-
issue.
that
I thought there was a
supersedes.
separation within, I thought there was in this special exception standards, isn't there a separation requirement?
There's the specific.
Those are the
I don't have it
cannabis
in front of me.
requirements.
Not in the general, in the
We're talking about our
specifics.
No,
standards.
the general, I'm talking about the general.
There's nothing
Oh.
specific, other than it's general says it shall not be, the planning board shall find it's not unsuitably located near. And so,
Allows
I spoke to the
interpretation.
applicant about this. The other side of it is residentially zoned, so there's transitional setbacks and things that we're gonna have to look at. So I think this particular site, there's gonna be a lot that's gonna come out of this pre-submission conference report, so I just wanna.
Particularly about the general standards, which
Yeah. General standards.
supersedes the New York State cannabis
Well, I mean,
law.
what I would say is it
has to be both.
It has to be both, and so you have to meet all your standards,
Right.
so. But in any case, I was gonna recommend that we schedule the pre-submission conference for June 26th of 2025.
Motion.
Does the applicant want to?
Counsel
Yeah.
for the applicant, if the board has any questions.
No?
June 26th.
June 26th?
Yeah.
Is
Public
this the-
hearing. This was also a parcel that has a very narrow entrance, as I remember.
This is,
This is right next to Surf Pro.
yeah, I was gonna
remember
say,
Surf
it's
Pro?
next to
Yes.
Serv Pro.
And then they began to fence it off,
Right.
right?
Yeah, because we were looking at the cross-access.
We were looking
there.
at cross-access and there was no way. Okay. Unless you have anything to say to us, no?
I have nothing to add. Mr. President did a very good job of explaining, and obviously, when we get to our special exception petition, we can discuss the relationship to the school.
Just your name for the record.
Sure, John Borkman, B as in boy, O-U-R, Q-U-I-N, Greenberg Trowing, Bridgeton.
Welcome, John.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Okay, so motion to set the public hearing for June 26th.
I said
So
motion.
you said motion and you said seconded. All in favor? Opposed,
Aye.
abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Anthony, 1456 SRR LLC.
I had handed the board the report, and I have hard copies here. So the board's familiar with this site. This is an LI 40 zone piece of property. It's on Spionk Riverhead Road.
Yeah.
The Brody site just to the north here, which was built out. This is a site plan application for the construction of roughly 25,000 square feet of special trade contractor uses. The property is 2.82 acres, has a pre-existing house on there, and some significant clearing, and then a bunch of dead vegetation. And Suzanne, a couple of years ago, came in with the presentation with all the pictures showing the piles of debris and everything else. And you just sort of see them sitting in there. So a big part of this site plan application is a revegetation plan, which is going to be.
Is it pine beetle devastation?
That I don't know. It's hard to say. But in any case, what we're going to do is we're going to do the staff report, and then we'll do the resolution next time. I'll draft something up.
Okay.
So if you just go to the second page, we had a public hearing in October, 10-day written comment period, and no comments were received. Because it's over 50 parking spaces, this was a type 1 action under SECRA and back in September of 2024. And we did coordinate with all the involved agencies, and this board issued a negative declaration. Referral comments, we're pending final comments from the engineer, but we do note that final engineer approval stamp plans are required of any site plan. So obviously that will be incorporated. We got comments from the Office of Fire Prevention. All the standard comments. One of them, they said drainage and leaching pools. That's on top of page 3. To be relocated out of roadways or capable of supporting the heaviest apparatus of the Eastport Fire Department. So that will be made a condition of approval. Then it notes, it says the area is served by public service water mains and fire hydrants. And then it says the nearest fire hydrant is in excess of 600 feet and they're recommending a fire hydrant. However, the fire district didn't make that recommendation, and looking at GIS, in fact, there's 2 fire hydrants on the other side of the road. There's one right down here, which is just to the south of this property, and one up here as well. So I'm not really sure.
But it's at that, isn't the 1,000 feet the standard?
Yeah, they said here 600 feet, but I don't know if they were not aware that there's 2 hydrants on this road. And the fire district didn't come back with any
And
recommendations.
they may be trying to get it on the same side of the road. That
Maybe.
might be.
I'll leave it for the board to have a discussion. And, so that's that. The Architectural Review Board approved the plan. It's a Morton building, obviously, pretty standard. And they approved it back in November. The Highway Department didn't have any recommendations. The Fire District didn't have any further recommendations. And then the Pine Barrens just came back stating that this qualifies as what would be development in the Pine Barrens, and they're subject to the CLUP standards. Just as a reminder to the board, with the Pine Barrens, it's the municipality that's required for administering the requirements. What's interesting about this case is our code allows 50% clearing for commercial. The Pine Barrens will allow you to go up to 65% initially. And what we were doing is allowing people to go up to the 65% with the transfer of Pine Barrens credits. And because the Pine Barrens allowed up to 65%, you didn't have to go in for a hardship. The Pine Barrens have changed their regulations, and basically what they said was you're subject to the more restrictive of the clearing restrictions, i.e. the towns, and if you want to go higher than the 50%, you have to go in for a hardship. So, I suppose that option is still available to the applicant, but I geared the resolution to.
But we have issues with more clearing, if I recall correctly, the buildings they want to put up will get them beyond the 50%.
Yeah, they're at like 53, so they're not far off. To me, a better approach would just be to amend the plan instead of the time and cost to go through it.
How large is the building? How many square feet?
The two of them, there's two buildings, and it's going to be 24,000 and change total. And then those were the only comments that we got. The big one is I'll have to get the engineer. So page 4, we have the special exception standards. The first one, that the use will be in harmony and promote the general purpose and intent of this chapter. That's a special trade contractor consistent with what LI 40 typically allows. It's fairly consistent, and you'll see we get a lot of special trade contractor applications. It's just the nature of people trying to get their businesses and as much of their stuff sitting in buildings out here. B talks about the plot area being sufficient. We're at 2.8 acres, well over the 40,000 square foot minimum. The proposed use does not prevent the orderly and reasonable use of adjacent properties. They are all within the LI 40. There were no cross-access set up with any of the properties to the north or the south, and probably doesn't look like it's really going to work or do anything to have cross-access in this case. We don't do it a lot of times in certain industrial properties, unless we're doing a much larger site plan in an industrial complex, which we have done. The site is particularly suitable. Again, it's LI 40 zone, so that's one of the locations where we want these. E, here's that statement. The characteristics of the proposed use are such that its proposed location would not be unsuitably near a church, school, theater, recreational area, or other place of public assembly. So there's no such uses in this area. F talks about the non-nuisance industry conforming to whatever chapter definition of the special exception use. In this case, there is no town code definition of special trade contractor, but we're aware that we reviewed similar applications, and they include, not limited to, electrical work, plumbing, HVAC, roofing, landscaping.
Maybe we should put that in our code.
So there you go. Access facilities are adequate and appropriate, and we're not within 75 feet of an intersection. Here, we're going to be eliminating the double access. It's going to be one way in, one way out. And we're certainly not within 75 feet of an intersection. All curb cuts have been approved by the highway agency. So we'll go to the highway department for a curb cut here. The off-street and parking spaces comply with the town code, and they do. We did the calculations and they worked out. Then we talk about buffers and screening and all the rest of it. So in here, that's where I put the discussion about the APOD and the Central Pine Barrens. They're looking at 53% clearing. And so we're just going to recommend that they amend the site plan to come in with 50% clearing, and then that their re-veg plan also be amended to reflect the new.
So Anthony, where do we put the project limiting fence? It's over APOD.
Yeah.
We will put the project limiting fence, and I'll make sure I have good language in but the project limiting fence should always be on the, the outward edge of the vegetation line, like literally right at that line on the landward edge, if it, something like.
We actually wrote it.
Yeah, you have the language.
We have the language.
I don't have a resolution, so I don't have the language in here. But I'm
But do you
aware
want
of
to
it.
put it in here or in?
I think it should go in the staff report and the resolution.
Both.
Because
Yeah.
let's hit them over the head.
Reinforces, yeah.
So let me put in. I'm just for the board's note. I will add the language regarding the project limiting fence.
Thank you. I could check that off my notes.
There you go. The collection of disposal of stormwater and runoff. Again, everything has to be contained on site. That's a requirement of the code. And this will be subject to the town engineer review and approval. And depending on the amount of disturbance, a SWIP or speedies, which Tom will often ask for as a condition. The next one talks about outdoor areas, really talks about sales, rental, equipment storage, or display areas. What we try to do on these commercial industrial site plans, and we'll put it in the resolution, I did it on the last one we did. We like to identify outdoor areas for storage or for work because inevitably every special trade contractor, the work comes outside, period.
Yeah.
There isn't a site that doesn't have it. So at least if we have a designated area, it gives us some teeth to be able to go there and say, you know, this is where it is.
This is not
Yeah.
nice.
So so that's what we'll ask for in this case. I graded out just because that was something. And in any case, no such areas would be permitted within the front yard or within the 50 feet of the property line. And M, there actually are no specific standards for a special trade contractor. So then some remaining site plan issues that we'll deal with in the resolution. The lighting plan, we got to decrease that Kelvin down to 2,700. We like the mounting height at 10 feet. Number 3, actually, I say the photometric data. They actually do have a lighting plan with photometric data, actually, and so that doesn't need to go in there. And then number 4 is about the lighting coming downward, not spilling on to adjacent properties, no dusk, dawn fixtures. And again, number 5 is repetitive, so I will take that out about to 10 feet. Landscaping, so we talked about the need to do the clearing calculations again, a landscaping plan to revegetate to bring it into compliance. And Susanna did put together an initial plan that's very substantial, and we're going to approve that separately as a separate plan. We don't have to approve it as part of this. We could just have them come in for a revised plan. The big thing is the interior parking. We're over 50 spaces, so we have to have interior landscaping to help break up the massing of the parking lot. And that's to the tune of 25 square feet for each parking space. So that has to go on the site plan. Signage has to be approved by the planning board, so we'll make that a condition. Engineering, again, final engineering approval is going to be required before we stamp the plans, and then a SWIP plan and a notice of intent with the DEC. The number of uses, yeah, I think I say here, final plan should indicate number of uses. I know we're doing a special trade contractor and parking and everything's based on square footage, and sometimes it's hard to pin down number of tenants, you know, because sometimes we have 10 spaces shown and someone comes in and they want 5 of them. And then at the end, you have 2 tenants in there, not 10. So if there's any way that the applicant could try to hone in on number of tenants, I would ask that if maybe they already have plans that we're not aware of. The dumpster, so we do have the dumpster locations on the plan. I just do note, because the parking lot just sort of comes to an end, that they may want to, they should look at a little turnaround area. So the trucks coming into the dumpster area could back out and have a little room to maneuver. The septic design is going to be subject to the Suffolk County Health Department. All mechanicals shall be screened, whether on the roof or on the ground. A note about the Spion solid plume, and so the health department may have requirements as it relates to vapor barriers or any other mechanism that prevents spread.
Do we know about that? What the
No, because a lot of times they're dealing with residential properties, so I'm not really sure. And because we don't require health department approval of the site plan, so who knows when they get there what requirements will be.
Because all of these structures are in that plume.
Are they gonna have a basement?
Susanna Herman and Consultants, just real quick, I just want to answer that question, because this came up the last time we were here, and they have already applied to the health department. The engineer, the septic engineer's been dealing with that. It came up and it was addressed, and I believe that the health department didn't have any special requirements related to the.
I haven't seen any.
It's,
The
I
health
think,
department, we've done a number of these, and even across the street, and it's
Did
never
they
come
require?
up. Never came up.
they require some notice though on the.
Right, and I think actually somewhere on the site plan, we actually have a note.
There is a note on there. No, there is
Yeah.
a note on
I think you probably mentioned that on a previous round, and we added a note just making anyone aware that this is within 1,000 feet of the plume.
Yeah.
But the
There's
health
no
department is really just,
monitoring or anything, no
No.
monitoring wells.
no, nothing was required as of yet. So, and I think they're pretty far along in the health department procedure.
And then the other site plan is the sustainability elements that we like to incorporate into the conditional approval. So we'll make sure that happens in there. But beyond that, I think
You're aware of we have a policy now, but in APOD, for project limiting fencing has to go up.
Okay. We can definitely add that. I'll work with Anthony.
yeah, and we have language. We'll
Yes,
put it in.
language.
Yeah, that's,
I just had one question about the engineering. It has been referred to the
It
engineering.
was.
Okay.
I don't have the final. See, we did an initial referral. He had
Right.
everything he needed, but ultimately we got to get his final approval. So we will do that.
Okay.
In this process.
It'd be nice to have that in case there are any comments that we could address now, because
100%. I agree with you.
my main concern is getting the clearing limit down below 50%. We're at 53%, so we have to eliminate over 4,000 square feet of current clearing. So I think it's going to come out of the dumpster area, because right now we have 135 feet between the two rows of dumpsters. I don't think we need that. I don't know off the top of my head if there's a requirement for garbage truck pickup.
In terms of number of dumpsters, probably not, but I'll leave you to figure out how you can make it.
Yeah, I mean, they could also reduce the size of the buildings.
Well, the buildings are already designed, already approved by the ARB. The clearing thing was a bit of a surprise due to the change in the policy with the Pine Barrens Commission. So I think we can do it. That's our goal.
Anthony, just a clarification on the interior landscaping on the parking lot. The 25 square feet per parking space, is that a standard requirement? So we're talking about
By code.
roughly 2,000 square feet if they are looking for 70 something. Right.
So that adds more
Yeah.
revegetation we need to come up with.
Okay.
Anthony, just a note on page 1, the first paragraph, there's a sentence that needs to be completed.
Oh, yes. Much of the veg. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to figure out what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, this site was, there is a residence now up by the road. There's clearing, encroachment from the property to the south. And most of the property is disturbed. There were multiple buildings back there at different points that are now gone. There's piles of rubble. There's very little left in there that's native. It's mostly vines and overgrown, invasive understory. There's really nothing worth keeping there.
But the re-veg plan that we have
But the
is
re-veg
very
plan
substantial.
it's going to be beautiful.
It's going to be really, the company who did the design, they really believe in diversity of plants, and it's extensive.
It's a dragonfly.
Yeah, dragonfly. They do a really good job.
Nice work. So I was going to recommend that, with the addition that you suggested, that we adopt the staff report. First action.
Any other comments?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Kate, second by Dennis, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And then let's just do an extension of the action deadline until May 22nd. I'll have the resolution.
Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1
Thanks,
absent.
Suzanne.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
94 Dune Road.
Oh, do you need that? The applicant? Supposedly.
Did she leave her map here?
No, that's mine.
That's yours.
Thanks. So, just the board knows the doctor's site. Everyone knows doctors. And, the applicant proposes for a change in non-conforming use. This is an R80 zone property. So the application is for a change in non-conforming use, the restaurant arena to 25 condo development with accessory structures. As this board knows, a number of years ago, the project was issued a positive declaration. The applicant had submitted eventually a draft environmental impact statement. We did an initial review. We prepared a memo. The applicant responded to that. We deemed the DEIS inadequate for public review, and then we got a resubmission. Just as a little house cleaning, the DEIS we're doing a determination whether it's adequate for public review. And then what happens is, and that's gonna be my recommendation when I go through this today, we're gonna have a public hearing on it. They're gonna have to get a ridiculous number of copies. We're gonna have to put it in the library. It's gotta go to everybody. There's gonna be a lot of comments that come in. From this point forward, and I spoke to John about this, and I'll have something next week so we could discuss it. We're gonna hire a consultant moving forward, because then it takes it from this point through the final stages, through the preparation of the final impact statement, and then ultimately to the finding statement, which you are responsible for as the lead agency. So there's going to be another whole round of review that's happening. So what's going to happen after we do this, they'll send us the final document, everything gets posted online, everything gets posted, and then I'm going to give you guys the final version of the DEIS, which is going to be the basis of the public hearing and all the comments from the agencies. You'll have that all in one thing. What I tried to do with this memo is, and I gave you the color version, is it goes through what was missing or what we asked for, and then whether or not they provided that information. I thought that was the easiest way to do it. So if you go to page 2, we talked about the soil borings last time, and about the capacity and the structural components of the foundations or whatever they're going to be, in light of soil types and everything else. So as I say here in the red, an updated geotechnical report was prepared. It was dated March 25th. In February, they did 3 additional soil borings, and the data was provided. And they did an analysis of the foundation support system. So they described, as a result of soil borings, how the foundations, what the structural components would be, and what the design elements would be. Now, whether or not there's more comments about it and more needs to be done, that'll come out of this review process. So, then if you go to page 3 and 4. 3 and 4, I outlined some of the. It was the town's coastal resources and water protection plan 2016. I identified policies 1, 3, 4, and 9 that I didn't think were adequately addressed. And so the applicant, and by the way, they also highlighted in red in the documents where they made the changes, by the way. So the DEIS has been revised to provide additional analysis of compliance with the town's coastal resource water protection plan, and its policies 1, 3, 4, and 9. And then they also, the discussion regarding social and economic impacts has been expanded and includes property loss, property damage, population displacement, as well as the FEMA, HOA, and loss of personal property costs associated with these impacts. So I think that they provided some additional information there. Go to page 5. We talked about, if you remember, we had a nice discussion about this, about what they're proposing versus what could be accomplished under R80. And they've actually added an entire subsection entitled Proposed Action versus Permitted Use. And it includes a comparative table, sanitary flow, parking, comparing R80 zoning and what could be accomplished there versus what is being proposed with 25 condo units. So that was put in there along with the charts. And I think that's good. And actually in that section, because they talk about zoning board of appeals variances and those standards, and they increased the discussion about the visual impact as it relates to the zoning board component. So that was added.
So just a question on that one. I understand it's proposed action versus the permitted use in the R80 zoning district, but what we're really comparing is the pre-existing non-conforming current use against the proposed. So I just want to make sure that that's
that
clearly
was in there, and that was actually in there from the beginning.
Okay.
My whole thing was I was just looking at it from the strictly zoning standpoint. What can be permitted R80 versus what they're proposing as under the non-conforming. But they did provide an analysis of the because that was their whole basis of their argument for this application. Is
this is so much better compared to what's there.
Thank you.
So Anthony, the amended DEIS is online?
It will be.
It will be.
It will be after we do this today.
Okay.
Yep. That's the whole key, is we want to get it to a point where we're comfortable putting it online for people to comment on. Under scenic resources, again, now the DEIS has been revised and includes a more robust discussion about the visual impacts. The analysis acknowledges the visual impacts and analyzes the changes to the landscape and the visual experience caused by the proposed project. This includes valuing the project's effects on scenic beauty, the character of the landscape along the designated scenic road, particularly the north side of the road, and how the local residents might perceive those changes. So that was included in there. We give some food for thought. Page 5 and 6, if you go to the top page 6, the affordable housing discussion. The DEIS has been revised to include affordable housing provisions of the town code, so they've outlined what the options are. I do have to make one correction, because I raised in here, I said I initially, because I was looking at the section that was revised, but there are other sections that talk about affordable housing. So I raised the question of whether or not the applicant removed their preference to pay a fee in lieu of, and they should clarify that. But I'm going to take that out because the DEIS does say in there that the applicant's preference is still to pay a fee in lieu of, but they did outline all the options. So I will revise that statement. The Southampton 400 plus sustainability element, we had the discussion last time about the climate action plan, and that's going to be addressed in the final EIS. The next one, bottom page 6, one of the big issues was that the DEIS talks about the various scenarios, stormwater surge scenarios under different wind conditions, different tidal conditions. It's detailed, but there was a lot of information in there, and I just wanted clarification on these scenarios so we understood, exactly what they were saying and what we were trying to mitigate. So it expands on the storm surge modeling to simulate various hurricane scenarios, including different wind speeds, storm tracks, and sea levels to determine the potential extent and height of inundation. They further assess the risk of flooding for specific locations of populations, and they consider property damage, infrastructure disruption, evacuation needs. So that discussion has been included. Again, the bottom of page 7, where they talked about visual aesthetic, that has been revised in the DIS, so we have a visual analysis. And on the page 8, we talked about this is just repetitive because of the flooding-related impacts and clarification on the various storm surges. Because again, a lot of the DAS things pop up multiple times in different discussions. But they gave us, the revised documents. I have all the sheets sitting right here. And so with that, I think they finally, we do have a DEIS that has a lot of information in there. I think the public could comment on it. There's a resolution that you don't have in front of you. Just bear with me for a second.
What about the alternatives?
The alternatives, if I remember correctly, no, we had that discussion. You'll see they're crossed out. We talked about the dock facilities. They indicated that the dock facilities, as it says in the DS, are not being removed. So, and then I had talked about the alternative that they came up with 20 units. I raised the question initially because we said, give us an alternative that reduces the number of units. So I had raised the question, where did you come up with 20? Should we be looking at anything else? But the applicant, correctly said, the scope says, give us a reduced plan. Didn't say how many to be reduced, so they went with 20, and that's okay.
And how many as of right? How many houses as of right?
The R80 zoning.
Yeah, it is 1 or 2.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I did not print this for you, but let me just read it to you because I think it'll be straightforward. So it says it's 4 resolved. It says, be it resolved, the planning board of the town of Southampton finds that the draft environmental impact statement for 94 Dune Road LLC is complete with respect to scope and adequacy for the purposes of commencing public review, and a public hearing on the draft EIS is scheduled for July 10th, 2025. Be it further resolved that a notice of completion of a draft EIS and notice of secret hearing for the draft EIS and the site plan for 94 Dune Road Owner LLC shall be prepared and filed with the requisite agencies and shall appear in the Southampton Press issue on June 26, 2025. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby directs the applicant to submit 18 copies of the DEIS prepared as required to the planning office for the purpose of circulating this document to involve agencies and parties of interest. And finally, be it further resolved that the planning board hereby directs planning staff to circulate the DEIS document to all involved agencies and recorded parties of interest, and to make this document available at the Department of Land Management Planning Office, the Town Clerk's Office, the Town of Southampton official website, and 2 local libraries. And I think ours is going to be Quad and West Hampton would be the 2 I would recommend.
What about Hampton Bays?
We have to do 2. I'm pretty sure it's 2. Is it 2, Claire?
It is 2, so,
Want an extra copy to go to Hampton Bays?
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe
Also,
we
we'll
can-
give you 19. Just, it doesn't say yet, you
It's-
can't add another one,
Oh, it
so
doesn't. You're right.
How many forests can we kill?
I'm just trying to be,
I'm-
nobody goes
I'm-
unpunished.
I'm not punishing you.
I just thought Quad would be the closest, but the biggest one, because I was in East Quad. You went to West Hampton, they had more choices, you know, and then I'm not quite sure if East Quad feeds to Hampton Bays.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you wanna do, I don't care.
That's fine. I'll add the Hampton Bays one. There's no harm in doing it.
You want an extra copy then? You want 19?
No, just give me 18.
So what's our action here?
Action is to deem the DEIS adequate for public review.
Okay, you're gonna give us a copy of that resolution? We don't have that resolution in front of us.
If I may, and in terms of the public hearing, because you'll you have to have a public hearing on the,
Yeah, that's what I said here. I said the hearing is scheduled for July 10th.
oh, you did? I'm so sorry, just, sorry about that.
Can you get some of those
Yes.
printed at Xerox for us?
I just read it though. It's ready.
I know you did, but
I don't think it's settled, they didn't vote yet.
I don't know if they voted yet.
well, what's happening on July 10th, Kristen? Anything?
Secret hearing or?
Secret hearing.
She's asking if there's any other things on the agenda,
Oh,
but nothing.
So do we need copies now? Is that what you're
I
asking
would,
for?
yes. Can Kristen make some copies for us?
There's no heading on it. I don't have any whereases. It's just.
It's
a resolve.
important that we have it for this, Anthony. I'm sorry.
I have to
You
go
wanna
down
bring it
and
back?
I gotta do a whole resolution then, so. John, I can put it on next time. I cannot do it.
just,
I did it.
you don't need a heading, you don't need any whereases, you've made the
I have
findings,
one
just let
copy
them vote on it. Just give it to the chairwoman and she can vote on it. It's,
I cannot go downstairs and do it now, Jackie. Just can't.
I heard it, it does what it has to do. Whereases aren't even, whereases are nice, but as everybody will tell you.
This is for our record keeping.
Yeah, no, I
It's
understand.
important.
And
I'm not saying
and
it's
the final,
not.
and the
Is
final
the board
version that I
comfortable? You
finish
wanna read
tomorrow
that?
is gonna be accurate.
That is accurate though.
Right, but my final version will not be draft form. It'll have the whereases in there. I have the incorrect libraries on there though.
We just added the one.
We're adding West Hampton.
It's gonna be West Hampton, Quogue, and Hampton Bays.
Is everybody comfortable with this?
Yeah.
Okay, I reluctantly say all right, since everybody's okay with it, Anthony.
I'll move it.
Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thanks, Melody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie, we're gonna do 12 and 19 together because it's Brown Buddha.
Yes,
I'll
okay.
move that.
There's actually 2 documents attached there. One's the part 2 and one's the part 3.
Claire? Claire?
Yeah.
I'm giving this to you, if she can make some copies of it for us.
Okay,
At
you
some
want it
point.
now? You want to go
Before
make
the end
copies
of
and
the
bring it
day,
back?
yeah.
Okay, sure.
Just pencil in a heading.
Okay.
So Brown Buddha, County Route 39 here. This is a property that previously had a site plan. I'm pretty sure that was a full contractor business. So we discussed last time the traffic study. This is one of the few cannabis applications, buildings over 4,000 square feet. So it goes from a type 2 action to an unlisted action.
Can you help me by just telling me where it is?
Oh, yeah,
since we've
sorry
got
about
so
that.
many of them?
The old Willow pool.
The old pool contractor, and then just to the west was the old,
Where they had those big statues of the gorillas.
Yes,
It's right next to
okay,
it.
thank you. It just, I
That
can't,
was an
I
identifying.
can't
property.
keep all of these in my head, so it's helpful to know where it is.
25 years ago, I got into a little fender bender right in front of that building because I foolishly looked over.
At the gorillas and the animals.
The dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly.
They're in Riverhead now, Anthony. You can go look at them.
Moving
They're by
west.
the river.
Exactly. So we'll just go through the secret here. It's pretty straightforward. This is really more of a special exception application than a site plan. Aside from maybe eliminating left turns, which I think they've agreed to, and I think the previous site plan already said it. Maybe some landscaping. There's not a lot of site planning going on here. But in any case, we'll do the secret here. So impacts on land, again, not in this case. They're not really building anything new here. So impacts on geological features. There's no significant geological features on this site. Number 3, no impacts on surface waters. There's no wetlands on or adjacent to the site. Impacts on groundwater, no. Not anticipated with this particular use to generate any significant sanitary issues. Impact on flooding, no. The site was site planned. I'm not aware of any flooding issues in the road, so I think everything's contained on site, and that'll be a condition of the approval again, like we always do. Impacts on air, not expecting any significant impacts on air. Impacts on plants and animals, again, this is a fully developed site. There's no proposed removal of any of the existing vegetation that's left. Impacts on agricultural resources, no. It's not within an ag district or near any ag land or used for ag purposes. Aesthetic resources, not here. This property doesn't have any open space potential at this point. Historic and archaeological resources, again, no, not in this case. Same thing with impacts on open space and recreation. No impacts there. No impacts on critical environmental areas. It's not within a critical environmental area. Impacts on transportation. We do say yes, and I do have in my part 3 notes that it would be expected to generate some traffic. As more of these open up and the novelty of it, the newness wears off, I expect the traffic would decrease. And so that's outlined in the part 3 there. So we acknowledge that there will be some traffic impacts, but not.
And didn't the applicant, the attorney for the applicant say that it was primarily delivery? Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
One of those was, I'm not sure.
It was Brown Buddha, but I'm getting the impression that that's the business model in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Impacts on energy, not expected here. Again, it's an existing building. This is all built out. Same thing with impacts, noise, odor, and light. Impacts on human health. Again,
I
Lori,
think you
take your
could say,
comment.
you could say yes.
It depends on who you ask, right?
Yes.
We've been saying no, but I guess, the issue is certainly debatable, right? Consistency with community plans. Again, this is consistent with the regulations that were put in place.
Yeah.
So. And consistent with community character, again, it's an existing building. So sort of what's visually there is there. So I would recommend that we issue a negative declaration for this.
Any conversation?
It makes sense.
Yep. Motion
Motion.
by Gloria, second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Just real quick then, Jackie, number 19, which is Brown Buddha also.
19, okay.
I'm going to recommend that we deem the site plan special exception application complete and schedule the hearing for June 12th.
June 12.
I had previously, Jackie, accounted for that, so whatever we have for the 12th had already included that.
Okay, good. So motion on 19 to deem it complete. Dennis moved it. Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Let's see, Anthony, you have Wilderness Trail.
They asked for an extension. We're going to do an extension of the secret determination until May 22nd.
Till next session, okay, so motion by Kate, second by Gloria, all in favor. Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Jackie, just real quick, number 21, because I forgot, I just came on at the last minute. We just want to extend the 9/11 Flanders secret action deadline until June 26th.
Okay. Motion to
June 26th.
June 26th, okay,
So the board
motion,
is aware. I met with the applicant, Janice and I met with the applicant, and they've revised their plans.
great. Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you, Anthony.
And thank you,
Thanks,
Anthony. So Prina, you're up. 15, 149 Jagger.
Paulsonelli site that some of you may be aware.
Yes.
I'll put the map here.
Flower?
The flower farm, yeah.
The sunflower farm.
Yeah. Oh, is it sunflower? Oh, yeah. Sunflower. This is the survey here, and these are copies.
Of the approved site plan, do you have that?
I do have one actually.
That's important,
It's
right?
this is yeah. It's we can reference it, but a lot of the information's repeated on this plan. I've already looked at it. This is I'm keeping one of these for the file, but these are the revegetation plans that were proposed. I have in the packet for you a sketch of that with our planning staff's recommendations. For
Okay. So set it up, Prina.
Yeah.
What's happened here? Is there an applicant here for
I
this?
believe they're on
Zoom?
Zoom, Kevin, maybe Tom Paulsonelli or Danielle, but I can talk.
Yeah, Tom's coming on.
I can talk through a little bit and then we can. Please. There are larger copies here of my recommendations on that.
Okay.
So this is the site here. It consists of 3 lots. This smaller shaped lot here, the rectangular lot, this square lot next to it, and then this long lot that takes you out fronts Old Country Road. The flower farm, the bulk of the disturbance for the flower farm is all consistent in these 2 lots here, so it really doesn't touch that. I think it's about 17.6 acres total of land. So this is in front of you for a site disturbance with a revegetation plan. We received the application last August. The previous site plan was an approval for disturbing 9.6 acres for the establishment of the flower farm. The part of that included, part of the approval included conditions. One of them was to establish buffers. So there's a 25-foot buffer. I don't know if you could see the mouse across this north property line, and then a 100-foot buffer adjacent to the eastern property line.
Are they there?
They're there. They've been covenanted. They've been disturbed.
Fully?
I'm sorry?
Fully?
No, not fully. The owners submitted an application for deer fencing last March, I believe it was. And shortly after we received an SOS complaint, one of 2 having to do with the disturbance, the clearing and disturbance of the buffers. Later, another one came in. Since then, we've gone to the site a few times. One of those inspections included a silt fence or a project limiting fence along the buffers to just make sure they don't clear further and to allow them to continue prepping the land for this spring. But they were confirmed that the buffers were disturbed. They submitted a survey. The survey shows that they are 10.0995 acres cleared and 9.6 is allowed. So they're right at about a half acre over cleared. I asked for clarification on the 100-foot buffer because that particular area in math isn't called out on the plan like the other areas, but we'll get updated as-built surveys anyway. There's a re-veg plan submitted on April 18th, just this past month, and that's what's before you. You have an 8.5 by 11 in the packet. Is that okay to read? Shows those 2 shaded areas in the hashed buffers. There's a smaller portion in the 25-foot buffer and then a larger portion in the 100-foot buffer. We've reviewed it. I have reviewed it with a couple of other staff members, including Janice, and we had recommendations. The owners proposed about 32 trees overall for both areas, and 600 shrubs, and that included white oak trees, black cherry trees, and then ferns and huckleberry bushes. What we requested or recommended is more trees and changing, including some evergreens, and instead of doing the black cherries, we proposed eastern red cedars. So that's what you're seeing in the 25-foot buffers, where we're recommending a mix of evergreens and shrubs. And then in the area that was disturbed in the 100-foot buffer, we're recommending white oaks across the edge of the buffer, 30 feet apart, all the way across, and then staggered eastern red cedars behind it, and then filling out the whole area with shrubs and grasses.
Is this Marty Shea's planting recommendations?
He looked at it. He went
Okay.
out to the site as well. He filled out the plant list recommendations, which the owners have considered and used everything that was on the list. We are recommending the change from the black cherry to the red cedar, just because the site is a little bit dry, and apparently the black cherries do better in near wetlands or in a wetter climate. And this is just a pretty dry site every time I've gone there.
And we should recommend a fence
Yeah,
in front.
so the ag
All the
fence that
buffers.
they've come into for an admin a little over a year ago, that was put on hold because of the clearing. That ag fence will delineate the buffers from the main body, so that's going to become your project limiting fence essentially, and that was addressed in the staff report when it was originally approved. So this addresses the buffers. That brings us to the 9.6 overall allowable clearing. So the question becomes to the board: do you want the applicant, the owners, to plant back to 9.6 acres, or do we want to consider amending the covenant, which would mean a majority plus one as well as a public hearing? I know.
Give us the numbers, the difference.
It says that it's 10.099, where 9.6, so it's like just under a half acre. I would like clarification, I think, or when we get the updated surveys, it'll show the area for the 100-foot buffer that was disturbed, because that isn't explicitly called out like all the other areas. There were two small areas around the existing home that were originally proposed to be revegetated, but Tom explained off the record that they're being used for the ag use. And I think, maybe I'll let Tom speak, because I think recently or semi-recently, they've gotten ag designation from the county. And I think that's a new thing. I don't think that affects the site plan approval and what's covenanted, but I think that's an important part of it to discuss, not just the buffers.
We worked very hard on this project in terms of the buffers and the plantings, and so it's disappointing to hear that it's been overcleared. Were there project limiting fences in front of this buffer that at
I don't
all?
believe there were.
Even
When we
though-
first went out there, we didn't see anything.
Did we not require it in our site plan approval?
I didn't see it spelled out. The ag fences were called out in the staff report, saying, the note to be changed to be to the planning staff's approval. But so maybe that, I wasn't part of that discussion. That was a few years ago. So maybe that was the intent, was to have an ag fence there as a limiting fence, because it is along the edge of the buffers.
We
really didn't establish
we did not have that rule, but we often did, if there's a part that's going to be preserved, we asked to put a split rail fence up, but I'm sure we did not on this, because that would have been such a huge, long fence. And I think
over 700 feet on the one side.
And I think what I heard you say, we have two choices. We could approve a re-veg plan, or we could amend the covenant and let them keep what they've destroyed.
Yeah, yes, those are the two choices. I bring it up because the current planting plan that was proposed to revegetate is only addressing the buffers. So we still have this covenanted 9.6. It was all part of the conditioned neg deck and the approval of the site plan. So it either has to be amended or it has to be fulfilled.
So the addition to the buffers that they planned and worked on does not affect the numbers of acres that were required to be uncleared. So the 10.1 is not reduced.
No, I think the way I'm understanding it is it's inclusive in that 10.1.
Okay.
So
Can I interject?
Overclearing is the overclearing, yeah, and just 1 second, please.
Yeah.
The buffers are included in the overclearing? I'm not clear.
Yeah,
about that.
it's all part of the overclearing. I've asked for clarification on that, so we'll get that when we get an updated as-built survey. But the overall, it's inclusive of the entire property, inclusive of the buffers. The 0.4995 acres that have been disturbed.
So they would meet the covenant requirement if they do this revegetation plan?
Yes, that's my understanding.
No,
Or no?
I think
That's
this
what
would
I
be a
asked.
little under if.
Still a half acre under.
I think that it'll be important to have an explicit note here, the area of that 100-foot buffer that was disturbed. Because if I'm looking at that survey that was submitted that's there, it calls out these two other areas that were originally part of the re-veg plan. One is 12,000 square feet, one is 18,000 square feet. And then the small area and the 25-foot buffer is about, I think it's a little less than 3,000 square feet or right around 3,000 square feet. So that's already at a half an acre. So it's unclear to me if the 100-foot buffer is really included in that or not. And that's what the as-built, so if the as-built comes back saying that those areas didn't match, then they would have to plant more, but we can just address it now too.
Right, well, I mean, my sense is that we worked really hard on this application, so to revise a covenant, I certainly would not be in favor of that. I mean,
We'll bring it back to the 9.6, and then it becomes a question of where do we want to see that planted?
Where we had
If
specified.
we want to just grow the buffers or.
Okay. So let's hear from the applicant. Please, can you give us your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Tom Polsonelli.
Yes.
Okay, so as you were discussing, the buffers will be restored on the overclearing based on the planting plan. And we can accept what the town has proposed in terms of amending our planting plan to include some of the different varieties of trees on the 100-foot buffer area. In terms of the other area that may have been overcleared, we had to install a well, which we did, I guess, a month or two ago or a while ago. And that well takes up some space. So we had to clear some area to get a rig in there to develop the well. We're also going to need some additional space to support the 9.6 acres that we're planting. So the buffers will be, as we discussed in length, as you said, the buffers that were slightly overcleared during the clearing process will be restored in full. And the interior spaces that we potentially overcleared, we're really using to support the agriculture of 9.6 acres. You got to store a tractor, you got to store equipment, you got to have a fertilizer put down. So we have a 17-acre site, and we are only going to plant what the planting plan indicated, which is a 9.6 acres, which is now very clearly identified on the property. But you have to have other space, and that space where there was some overclearing done to support the agricultural work. We're not looking to plant any more. This is all interior to the site. We'll have no impact to the neighbors because we'll have a 100-foot buffer to the north of the Shopman farm. And we have a 100-foot buffer to the east between the Hickory Bend homes, as we discussed over a year or two of that. So that's the reason why we just can't plant 9.6 and then just have woods around the 9.6 because there's no support space. In addition to putting a well in the ground, which is in that triangle piece at the lower end of the site that you're looking at, which I'm not seeing, but there is a triangle, which now there's a well that's down 100 feet with a 3-horsepower motor and electrical switchgear to support the agricultural work. And we also had to excavate for the electrical to come into that site, which we did. We brought the electric in. So all that takes a little clearing. It's very difficult to work in a wooded area.
So we never, how come we didn't review this when we reviewed this site plan?
Okay, so
Where?
Tom, do you mind if I speak about where the
Go right ahead,
9.6
go right ahead.
came and the covenant?
Mhm.
So as we were reviewing this, it was important, I guess, to we reviewed this and we did it under secret, unlisted action. If they stayed under the 10 acres, they were an unlisted action. If they went above 10 acres, they would have been type 1. So there would have been some additional review under the secret. So to consider his application, which would be to amend, you'd have to amend the covenant, you would also take another look at secra, which, whether something's a type 1 or unlisted, you do essentially the same review. The caveat is if there's any other entity involved in it, you would do a coordinated review, right? You'd have any other approving agency involved in it. So you could consider the 10.1 as a covenant amendment, but I would suggest at the same time taking just another look at secret to make sure you didn't miss anything. What that might mean for the application. So that's why you put the covenant on it, is because they insisted that it was going to be 9.6. That's what they're going to stay with. Because of secret unlisted action, you could do secret at the same time. And there was a full environmental review, and those covenants came out of that review.
I'm actually now confused.
Mm-hmm.
The 9.6 acres, I thought was the farm, and the other was a buffer. The farm, I was assuming, would include whatever the farm needed. So the sunflowers, the
Clearing
well.
for the well, the storage of
equipment.
the tractors.
Yes, so
Okay.
if that's not true, then I'm confused.
Then do we open up the whole application again?
I think you do. If you consider the 10.1, you'd have to take a look at everything. I think you do, because you did a secret based on 9.6.
So the 10.1, again, I thought that the overclearing was only in the buffer. And so the 9.6 is the farm, including the clearing that they need to actually farm it. So what am I missing?
I don't think they accounted for what they would need for the support equipment when they came in.
So it seems easiest if we have to expand another half acre to meet, right, the first review. So can't we just expand the buffers a little bit to make up the half acre? We're talking about 20,000 feet is a half an acre, 20,000 square feet, roughly. So is there some way that the people who went to look at this to make the recommendation with the plan could figure out a way to maybe increase the buffers, which is a good thing anyway, right?
But I thought
That would add up to the 10.1.
Yeah, I'm still confused because I thought the difference between the 9.6 and the 10.1 was the buffer that was overcleared.
But not enough, apparently. That's what it was.
No, it's more than that.
But
More.
you're saying, Mr. Posinelli, that you couldn't use 9 acres of planted area and 0.6 or 9.1 and then have your 0.5 acres carved out for your accessory, equipment, et cetera, and storage? Because really it's a lot to then open this back up for a whole secret process. You lose your whole season.
We definitely do not want that to happen. We always went in with a 9.6 acre of the farmland of planting. We went into that. And as we got into clearing the 9.6 acres, and our whole plan, our business plan is to plant on 9.6 acres. We slightly overcleared the buffers, which we're going to restore, so that wipes itself out. And then we had to put a well in, and we didn't want to put the well in the middle of the field. So we put the well in the other wooded areas we have around the homes and around the apple orchard that we have there. But if you add it all up, we're still at 10 acres, though, even at 9.6 of the farm, and we overcleared by 400, less than half an acre, we're still under the 10 acres. So still, are we at that point under SEQA? Even if you include the overclearing, if you can call it all a farm, we're still under 10 acres.
Right.
So why
But
would SEQA?
farmland includes all the accessory structures or uses, right, that you
Yeah.
would need. So that farmland isn't your full planted area, it's your farm as the self-contained space.
Well, that'd be
But it's still under 10 acres. It's still, even with the.
What was specified is 9.6 acres for the fields and the other areas.
Well, we never addressed the other areas on the site plan. We addressed the road going into the farm, but we never addressed, maybe it was, my mistake being, not an experienced farmer, but we needed to have support space, and we never addressed that in the site plan, because you can see it's just the farm around the wooded area.
So what he's
So
saying
by
is
taking the
he-
extra 400,000,
Clear support space still brings him up to 10 acres, but not over.
correct.
No, we think so. We won't know until obviously the as-built comes back, including the buffers.
So we need that to finish this discussion?
I think you do. I mean, maybe we get a kind of a consensus of the board. If he stays under the 10 acres, would you be amenable? Because that is the trigger that came to be. So if he was at 9.9 or something like that, would you be amenable to that? And maybe we could work on a plan that makes that work.
So, I mean, I don't know how complicated it is. He needs to revegetate what he took out.
Yeah, I mean.
And then he has to put his equipment somewhere on the land. He's got 9-point-some-odd acres.
I mean,
I don't know
if he's
why
saying,
he has to take that out of what we've already approved.
I mean, if he's saying that he has to plant 9.6 acres, which I think I heard, and he needs other space for everything else, then it's well over 10 acres, and you have to open secret.
Right.
If he's able to farm in his 9.6 acres
And keep his equipment
and
there.
keep his equipment there, as you
then-
were saying.
And
then
I
it's just-
see, I'm sympathetic to this, however, it's also an issue of fairness to the way that we consider other applications and the definitions. And a lot of things do come up within the town where farmland on 9.6 acres and what's an accessory structure, what's allowable, it's important for us to be fair, I think.
And maybe, that's why maybe expanding the buffer a little bit on both is the easiest way. He still has all his farmland and
Or you
resolves
could-
the problem.
Revegetate like over, with shrubs over the well area. I don't know where there's.
If we were to revegetate the buffers that are in the plan that was submitted this season, and then we surveyed the site, and we kept the farm area under the 9.6 acres, we'll know for sure at that point. And maybe we can revegetate some of the smaller areas outside the 9.6 acres, so that would be, under within the site plan.
Right, to piece back together your missing,
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, the buffers that we put into the farm were substantial, which we agreed upon, which were 100-foot wide buffers to the east and 25 to the south. So they are substantial buffers. And as I sat through some of the agricultural meetings, they said that, the buffers were, I think we lost 3 or 4 acres on the buffers alone, 4 acres of the farm. So we've done what we could here to build a buffer around the site to accommodate the areas around it. And then we're kind of stuck in a little small site to be able to support the farm, and we overcleared slightly to do that. But again, we'll be under the 10 acres for SEQA. If the final survey comes in, we'll make sure it's under that 10 acres. We'll have our preliminary survey, then we'll do a final survey, and we'll revegetate it so we don't beat that threshold of 10 acres. We are on 18 acres of property.
So we restore the buffers now, get
Right.
that
And then
done.
do a survey.
So how do we ensure that this 0.5 acres gets resolved? Right?
The survey is going to tell us how much.
My understanding is that 0.5 acres is they revegetate the buffer.
No.
No.
Separate. Buffer is one issue. This 0.5 acres is a
Okay.
separate issue.
It's still short outside the
So
buffer as
how
it
do
exists
we
now.
support,
So how can you-
the advancement of this
How can
business
you
for the
adjust your
season?
planting layout?
Well, I think you approve the buffers.
Yeah.
Right? You approve the planting the buffers. I think we're good with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Allow them to do
The fencing, is that's another
Mhm.
thing, like we
Yeah,
would do
Yes.
the
release
admin
that, release that
fencing.
approval.
Which
And
will
then maybe
protect
give
the
them a
buffers.
give them a time frame to submit this as-built survey. So maybe six months?
Yeah.
Does that sound
I'm okay with that. If we can restore the buffers, get approval to put the fencing in, because without the deer fencing, the farmer is very limited what he can plant, because sunflowers will be eaten the minute he puts them in the ground.
Yeah.
So we want to get the deer fencing in so we can get a crop in for this year.
Is that
So
still the crop, Tom? Is that
that's still the
sunflower?
crop. Yeah, that's still the intention, but
It's not
if I couldn't get the deer
woodlands, right?
fencing, yeah, if he couldn't get the deer fencing, then he's talking about dahlias and peonies because deers don't eat them, I guess. But we don't want to go down that road, but we want to get back to sunflowers, so we need a deer
Your
fence.
solution is good.
Okay, so we'll
Let's go
try
with
that.
So
and then
how do
we'll need
you
time
like
frames.
ensure that what happens after 6 months?
Well, we have we have a calendar of all the things, our deadlines. So,
The conditions, and I'll include a resubmission of the vegetation plan as part of that condition. And then the
as-built.
as-built are always part of the completion of
November
the
8th.
site disturbance. And then we'll include that 6-month timeframe to submit, to resolve the remainder of the half acre.
and then I think we're aiming for under the 10 acre, right?
Under 10 acres, right. That's what we did secret on, and that's what we should stick to.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so what's our action here? To approve the re-veg plan, or what?
To approve the re-veg plan with those conditions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have that written up for us?
Yeah, I have it in front of you. Some of them were sort of TBD, and I'll massage it to include the 6-month language. And, did I hand that out?
Yes.
Yep.
I can't find it.
You see that, Jackie? It says 149 Jagger at the top. I can give you mine.
It's gotta be here somewhere.
I've got it right in front of me.
Yeah, here.
Here, Jackie.
Thank you.
So the be it resolved, revisions to the revegetation planting plan per the Ocean Fog Farm.
Yes,
recommendation.
with our recommendations included, so I've
Right.
addressed
Your
that.
re-veg plan.
Okay.
And then the conditions is where I will tweak. I'll still ask for the revision of the re-veg plan to include, and I will describe the planting per staff recommendations for both buffers. And then the inspection, the as-built surveys, and then I'll include language for the 6-month timeframe to make sure we are under 10 acres.
You have 6 months in number 4.
Yeah, well,
but
they can
tie
extend it
that-
because the approval lasts for, it's a 12-month approval and they have the ability to extend it.
So
6
here's a
more months for
question
18
too. If the covenant says 9.6 acres, we still would have to do a covenant amendment?
Yes, if
Right,
they ended up
if they ended up
under
not
10 acres.
9.6.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll consider it that.
So
We'll
try to
reconvene
get
on that in
that,
6 months.
try to find little pockets where you could fill in that, you know, near 0.5 acres so that you don't have to have the covenant amendment
Covered.
and all that stuff.
We'll do it, yeah, we'll try to make that happen. It's not have to do any additional work here with this, I
Can you
understand.
give us a revised, email us a revised
Yeah,
of this?
I'll email you the final.
And the survey will be due within
Okay,
6 months. so-
any other comments? We're going to move this application. Motion by Tom. Second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 5 in favor, 2 absent.
Go on and grow.
Thank you, thank you very
I'll
much.
do it tomorrow and I'll email you the final.
Email us all. Thank you.
To see 10 acres of sunflowers.
Okay, Prina, David Goodman.
David Goodman is rescheduling the hearing. They had a,
Posting problem, I guess.
posting,
I don't think it was a
mailing
posting
issue.
problem. I think they just didn't bring the stuff.
One of the mailings, I think, was lacking, so we have to reschedule the
to-
hearing to June 12th.
To June 12th.
Yeah.
Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by Kate. All in favor? Aye. Abstentions? 5 in favor, 2 absent. Do you have applicants here?
I have one more item and the applicant is here.
Okay.
I think I'm on the next.
Maynard, Denise Maynard?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the map. This is on for completeness. The
Okay.
board previously deemed this application incomplete, I think it was in March.
Completeness and schedule a hearing.
Yeah, scheduling the hearing, the next available date is June 26th. At the last, there was an extensive history on this property. The board had a lot of questions.
Is that the one that Carl Benincasa sent the narrative
Yes,
on?
that sort of report. Prior to that, they sent a title search. He's here in case you have any further questions. But this is the site. The proposal is to for a two-lot subdivision dividing the area of the parcel that fronts Halsey Lane, which includes the single-family residence.
The 3 driveways or 2 driveways, is that's one?
Well, it has a single here, but then it has another driveway off of this private right-of-way, Morgan Hill Way it's called. And this portion of the second lot has this pre-existing apartment over a garage. They've both been renovated, expanded upon. But you'll have one undersized lot and one oversized lot.
Are there CLOs on all these properties?
There are COs, variances, everything's been done.
Trying to remember his narrative, yeah. So it's complete?
It is complete. Mike, I don't know if you wanted to add.
Do you want, yeah?
The board asked for.
Can give us your name.
Absolutely. Michael Simonsky of counsel to Carl Benincasa, 860 Montauk Highway in Watermill. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Mike.
The board previously looked at this and had questions as to the history of the property. We provided an extensive narrative to the board, complete with a number of exhibits that really give you the full history of the narrative of how this property got to here and what they're trying to do. So basically what we're trying to do is basically split it into 2 lots to have, in one sense we're making it non-conforming by having the smaller lot that borders onto out onto the main road. However, we're making a conforming lot that borders out onto the private Morgan Hill Way. It's non-conforming because there's 2 dwelling units on the same property that exists by way of variance. So that's why we're here in front of the board to determine that, and then we will go off to zoning to do the variances to conform it.
So it's
part of the covenant amendment for because the subdivision amendment one called for no further subdivision. But they can amend the restrictions with a majority plus 1 vote.
But we're just deeming it complete now.
Just deeming it complete now.
And
That's all.
scheduling a public hearing?
Yep, that's all.
And setting a public hearing.
Jackie never answered me. Is June 26th okay? That's our first date.
Kristen, how, June is good, June 26th. Okay, motion by Tom, second by Gloria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent. Okay, you're all
Great.
set.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Okay,
Spionk.
Claire, you have the last 2, right? The Spionk, do you want the Spionk floating?
Yes. Floating photovoltaic.
Photovoltaic?
Yes,
Say that.
I can't say it.
3 times.
So we saw this back in June of 2024. This was a request for a pre-submission on the subject property, which is a sand mine
Is
currently.
this the sand mine that's going to be grandfathered? Is this one of them?
No,
Grandfather?
no. This
Be
is the,
part of, under the sand mine regulations that just were passed?
The new, yes.
Yeah, this would be part of that.
Okay, thank you.
So, all
we-
sand
do we
mines
know-
are, so.
Well, it's
Yeah.
sand mines in, I thought it was only in residential areas.
This
That
is
was,
residential. This is zone residential, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
and do we know where this particular sand mine stands in terms of its life expectancy?
No, that's a great question.
when they originally proposed it, they said that they had cleared 10 acres, but they intended to continue functioning as a sand mine for another period of years.
But that was before the change of code.
sorry to make you come all this.
Step right up.
But it's good. You can answer some questions. Do you want to ask?
Yes, so Cook, one of you, two of you come up.
We've got 3 chairs.
Yeah, 3 chairs.
To get more.
I'll go over here.
Hold on. And give us your name for the records, please.
Kevin Brown, Oglin Brown, Syracuse, New York, and I'm counsel
Okay,
to Next Gen Property Management.
and
I'm Steve Mooney, Marine Energy Technology Solutions.
Thank you.
Alan Scott,
Consulting. Your last name?
Alan Scott, ALMSKOG. David Grosser Consulting, 630 Johnson Avenue, Bohemia.
Okay.
And I'm Regina Bypass with PW Grosser, BYKOV.
Okay, as long as our secretary, can you got that, Kristen?
I'll go back.
Thank you.
So what happened is, at the time in June, there was some discussions, there was a work session. The board has some questions. At the time, the water feature was not as big as it is now. The board said, well, we can't really consider an application if the existing conditions are not what you'd be reviewing, right? So the applicant went back, it is now bigger. I believe they still have a permit active from the DEC and they're trying to go further with the mining. That's what I understand, but they can clarify. So it is a larger structure, larger pond. You can see that.
Yeah.
Do you mind toggling back to 2022? Just for reference. Right, it's 2022 and that's
Considerably.
2024.
It's like 4 times larger.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's getting closer to what they're considering. I'm not quite sure. How big is it now? Do we know?
About 5 acres.
It's 5 acres now, so it's going to 14 acres?
Yes, the mining, let me explain that there was a DEC mine permit, that's for a 5-acre pond. And then an application was into 14 acres, same area. And we made the application initially saying, we'll take the 14-acre pond when it's complete and we'll put on a 7.5 megawatt floating solar under the provisions of the code. We came in last year and said, well, it's not there yet, and there's the permitting issues with the DEC. So we just went with the mine we have now, the permit we have now, 5-acre plan, and we downsized from 7.5 acres to a phased plan of 5 megawatts in 2.5 megawatt phases. So we have enough room now for the 2.5. And we have gone, when we were talking last year, it was very conceptual. We've now secured an EPC, a contractor to take care. We've got the interconnect application in. We've got full designs now. So what we're asking is to review the 2.5 that's accommodated by the existing lake, the existing pond, and then later, phased. If the rest of it, if we can't get enough room in it, if you don't want to have 5 megawatts, we'll leave it at 2.5. But I think 5 megawatts meets 8% of your goals, and because it's floating solar, this can be done in the next year and 18 months. The EPC's in. Steve can address this. We can have 2.5 megawatts in 18 months.
And so you'll continue mining the other portion of the property while the solar is set up?
Well, we'd like to, and we'd like to go to the 5 megawatts, but if the board doesn't approve it, we've got the 2.5.
No, my question is, are you going to continue sand mining?
We have a DEC permit. That's all in litigation. It's extensive litigation with the town.
Yeah.
We have, we won at the court, at the district court. We were reversed on the appellate division. We think that decision is incorrect. We've respectfully to the Health Division. We filed a notice of appeal. We anticipate, given the scope of that decision, which basically said Syracuse aggregates does not apply on Long Island. That's not what the Court of Appeals said a few years ago. We may end up mining the 15 acres under the DEC mine permit. In either event, if you approve, we can go ahead and mine and put in a 5 megawatt plan as a construction permit, just like any other construction.
Yeah.
So if
they're designed independently to function on their own. So the 5 acre lake that's there, we can put the 2.5 megawatts in and be dispatching power to the grid, within 12 to 15 months.
So my question,
And
just,
that doesn't have anything bearing on the other part.
I just have a basic question.
Yeah.
Is this an opportunity site in our code or not? Was my understanding that it was not, but I don't know if that was changed.
I don't think we would have gone to all this effort if it wasn't the opportunity zone. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this, and it was because it was stated as the opportunity zone.
Right.
Existing sand mine.
I think it does say for solar, it's an opportunity site for mining.
Yeah, it's not for battery
We're
storage.
not talking about
Oh, no,
batteries.
not battery storage. No battery storage, no.
So 2.5 is now doable on the existing 5 acre. You're hoping to get approval for 14 acre, in which case you put another 2.5.
Right.
And while this is going on, you're in court trying to figure out whether you can continue to mine.
On the area to the south, going south, yeah. They may say no, they may say yes. That's a very different decision, and
Right.
you can ask counsel. It shocked a lot of people.
Okay. But the only thing on the table here is the 2.5 on the existing 5 acre lake.
Correct.
So the
Well,
pond is,
Phase one.
the pond has grown to 5 acres now, did you say?
Correct.
Right. So what do? You put a barrier or something to just do the 1/2 of the 5 acres to, so
Well,
you segregate it and you
it's-
just put it here down, or?
Yeah, it's anchored to the sides. Okay, that's how it's done. And that is out of the realm of where they're going to be mining if they get the additional approval.
Right.
So
Right.
it is designed independently. The onshore structure, which is just a small concrete pad for the inverters, is located between the two sites, so that if the south is approved, then that could be brought up. And the interconnection study that we've submitted is for the full 5 megawatts. So we could just do the 2.5. It's designed that way, so we can do the 2.5, and then if and when, we can add the additional 2.5.
And then,
So
I
they're
guess
not-
theoretically, you keep mining, this pond keeps getting bigger,
No.
and then
We
you
have
would expand?
limitations on the mining.
Yeah, we're constrained by the existing disturbed area. This is all long disturbed. This site's been mined for a long time. It's all long disturbed, and we're constrained. Could we get to 7.5? We might have been able to. That's what we initially, but once we got an EPC and had the formal engineering done, they came back and said, no, you're gonna, stay inside that box, that 14 acres of water, you're gonna want to have.
So how
just
do you
5
separate?
megawatts.
How do you separate it? Tom asked that question. I'm not sure I'm clear.
Because it floats on top of the surface, and your
Oh, and how do you
excavator
separate
can.
the water?
You don't have to. There's no need.
So you'll have,
You can have a large lake and have floating on one side and still have operations on.
When you say floating, it's attached to something underneath.
It's anchored to the sidewalls.
It's anchored.
It floats.
It's not literally,
It is
It's
literally
not, it
floating.
doesn't move around like a sailboat.
that, thank you.
It's
Yes,
anchored,
that's-
it floats on the
Right.
water, but it's anchored.
Yeah, we have
So it
these.
can move very little with, there's seasonal fluctuations in water levels, so you need some play.
But it's not.
But they don't just sway all over the lake, they probably move within a few feet, they're anchored, multiple anchor points along the sidewalls.
Right.
The dark area we're looking at, that's the lake now?
Yeah.
And is that 14,
24.
and that 14 acres now?
No, that's 5.
Five-ish.
That's just 5. So how do you create this additional lake?
I just,
Keep digging.
Excavating.
And that's gonna just make the water come up?
No, the water's there.
Yeah.
I got
It's
it.
like
You're
digging,
removing the land.
it's like
Okay.
digging at the beach, and you dig a hole,
Okay.
you start to get to a spot where water
This
is.
is groundwater. Right, it's gonna come all the way, okay.
I think it's
All right.
just, I mean, we're just gonna be setting the pre-submission conference, but, you know, we looked at this amortization of sand mines and basically said, well, this is crazy, we should stop mining right away because of all the environmental considerations. So here you have solar, which, you know, it's like, oh, that's great, but what's the cost benefit analysis here of, you know, opening the door to this, you know, community energy pumping into the grid, against now, you know, then an expansion of the continuation of the sand mine, which is really detrimental to the water quality. So, you know, those are the things I'm thinking about, and I
Well, the
think
lake
that
is
you'll
there
hear
regardless.
that.
I mean, I'm not saying, the lake is there, it's not whether you allow solar or don't allow solar, the lake is there.
Right,
So
but-
now, is this a good use for reclamation use for the site, which meets the town code?
Right,
to
but
do
I-
something beneficial.
Correct, but the other side of what she's saying is that it's environmentally a negative impact.
Which is
You're
zero.
mining.
And essentially, with our approval of this use, it's kind of, you know, saying,
Sanctions
oh,
it.
that we're, you know, supportive of this. And I feel conflicted about that, and I think we will hear that at the pre-submission conference. So I just want to go on record for that, and we can set the conference and
Which is why
discuss
I
it.
asked where you stood in terms of the new code, which is basically grandfathering sand mines away based on the amount of sand that you've already taken out and what you might still be able to continue, and that I believe you have to go to the ZBA to get approval, and I don't have the code in my head to know what you're allowed to right now, but that, to me, that's a question I need answered before I can even think about this.
Well, and, you know, the whole amortization of the sand mines was to, you know, honor that the pre-existing use was, you know, allowable, and to give businesses a chance to realize their investment, right? If you're making another investment here that has a monetary value, I would then argue that you should give up some of that amortization schedule and stop mining sooner to reconcile the books.
I don't disagree with you, Kate.
That's
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, no, I am totally agreeing with that too.
For your
But,
consideration.
I think the code that the town board passed was a 7-year amortization
At the max.
at the max.
Depending on how far along they are.
Yeah, we had made a recommendation for fewer years. So you can see the issue here, you know, it's almost like double dipping, so.
Right, but if you can reduce, you know, that would be, for me personally, just speaking for myself, looking at that, you know, where you're ending up with the same amortization schedule, but you can still, you know, use that long term, I would reduce the number of years that you'll continue mining, and, you know, potentially consider a transition of use that would be more appropriate for the groundwater.
On the phase plan, we'll be done mining in 2 years, and it'll be changed over. If we can do the north side now, we can finish this whole thing and be done in 2 years. Now that we have the EPC and we know exactly what we have to do, where we're gonna put it, how we're gonna launch it, they're very easy. Floating solar is nothing like other operations.
Right, but we're also not interested in, you know, faster degradation of the environment. You know, there's that,
Did
you
you
know, there's a
not
lot of
talk about
factors here.
lining at some point, last time when we had the work session? Talked about lining this pond?
No.
You never said that.
You really
It's a
couldn't.
wetland.
Yeah.
No.
It's not just
Intersecting
wetlands.
with the water table, essentially.
Yes, it does. We have,
It has been for a long time.
It's a wetland.
You're saying
As
under
it
the current
exists, but it's
code,
growing.
you
That's-
have to be finished mining in 2
that's-
years?
Wetlands are not
we will be
opportunities.
finished mining
Will
in 2
be
years.
finished. Under the current code, the very recent adoption?
I believe
No, we don't have to.
we don't have to,
But
but
that's
we could
that's
be
an important
to
distinction.
to do this. So, folks, there's another thing though. We're saying that this is horrible for the groundwater. We have a decade of studies of this site, this specific site, and there has been no impact to groundwater from the mining. In fact, when they went to mine in the water table, to remove the one risk that was identified by DEC after 30 years of evaluating 500 sand mines in New York State, the one risk, it doesn't add contaminants except spills from operating equipment. So when they went in the water table, as soon as they opened up the water, they went out and invested in electric dredge and electric conveyors and eliminated that risk because they knew that was the issue in this town, that people are very concerned, rightfully, about this water table and about the sole source.
So let's set that issue aside because that's a different discussion. But you're telling me, so what we were asking for is maybe if you reduce the amount of time for mining, then we can be much more favorable towards this project. And what you're saying is you will be finished in 2 years, which is less than the requirement that the town now has in place for you to finish? Can we find that out?
We don't know that.
We
That's the
don't
question
know,
I'm
because
asking.
we have to go through the amortization process.
Okay, that's
and
what I
all that.
wanted.
And we
You
have to
did say, I think you just said, though, it was less than the years you required. So how can we find out how much time you'd be allowed? Because if you can come back and say, well, we'll cut that in half, and so we can get this project
Well, I
going,
think it's a
maybe.
matter of like, what's the determining factor too? Like the time is what the town said, but it's like, oh, well, you only have, you have 50 acres and we estimate that you could cut down, 5 acres at a time. So you have 10 years, oh, we'll just, we're going to be done in 2 years cutting down the 100, the acres, so.
They don't have any plan at all to go outside of the existing mine. But all this land that we're talking about, every acre of it is already in the mine. It's already been affected by mining. It's just a matter of whether we leave it as a mound in the middle of the, walkway, or we leave it as a pond with floating solar on it. If you look at that whole area is already in the mine. When you look up at that picture, you see the white.
Can I ask a question? How would you define this? You keep saying pond.
Lake,
Reservoir, lake.
Reservoir.
What's the depth of it?
40 feet.
40 feet.
You have 40 feet of water in there?
40 feet of water, yeah. That's.
They've dug into the aquifer.
Into the aquifer.
And the aquifer is now exposed to the air, which is why it's a degradation, because
Right.
now all the stuff that is in the
Actually,
air
there's-
is going into the water.
Actually, there is contamination coming onto the site. It's coming from the New York State DOT highway to the north, and it's getting into the catch basins, and it's running south under my client's property. Those are certain chemicals. They've been documented. They're much stronger in the upgrading side. When they get to the downgrading side, they're much less. One of the reasons is because there's a pond. Chemicals such as VOCs, when they're exposed to air, dissipate and volatilize. So even people at DEC, who I know people don't always agree with, have said sometimes when you have VOCs in groundwater, which is not from the site, it's been documented at low levels, but they're better when they leave the site because it's actually cleaning up the groundwater. There's a lot of false facts about mining in groundwater, and it's a shame, but there's data. And I implore people to look at some of the data, because there's misinformation about the facts that mine site's contaminated.
Okay, but
You might have to hire a consultant.
Right, so,
Yes.
I mean, like,
Yes.
we're gonna, I think it's important to say that we're going to get into this, and like, a hydrogeologist that we hire can explain how the water flows and, how it's impacted, because there's a lot of different ways, right? So, I would move to set the
But they offer-
pre-submission conference, if it's
This would
okay.
be for-
It's really critically
So we can get
important.
into that.
It is.
And whether we entertain the application or not. And this is, in the sense that it's an inappropriate site. I mean, if it becomes a wetland, that is not an appropriate site. That's not an opportunity site. And so this is neither fish nor fowl here, and that it catches us in an awkward spot where you've got active litigation going on about stopping sand mines and certainly phasing them out, and now wanting to put what is essentially a environmentally nice situation on top of it. It's a contradiction in some ways, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it may not, in fact, be the appropriate site for what we're
Yeah, I
looking
mean, you've
for.
got, if you have sand and all that water from those catch basins are traveling through sand slowly, with the different chemicals that you're talking about versus through water as an express lane,
No,
south.
The volatility of those contaminants you're talking about allows them to evaporate away. That's the point, is if it's going through the ground infrastructure, it's not going away. And we can
Yeah, so
prove
we
it.
have to look at all of
We
that.
have 10 years of data on the entrance from the aquifer to the exit of our property. And it shows that that stuff's passing through from another source, okay? And by what he was getting at is that the volatility, it evaporates away, so there's actually less leaving that was coming in. So that's a positive. And
So that's good. We should look at that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I mean, and you can see by the first 3 pages that this is a typical technology that's used on water sources. I mean, those 4 projects were done. Those are not the full extensive list of water.
Can you
sources.
tell us where they were?
It's all right there.
No, just can you tell,
Yeah,
if
2
you
of them
know,
are in New Jersey, one's in Ohio, and one's in Utah.
okay,
Where
do
are they
they
getting their
live, do they
water
live
from?
over their aquifer?
They're sitting
Yes.
on their reserves.
These are on reservoirs.
Yeah, they're all on reservoirs,
Drinking water reservoirs.
Aquifers. And,
No, not aquifers, they're
Not
reservoirs.
aquifers.
They're reservoirs.
Yeah, different
one is
animal.
it?
Yeah.
Right, it's a different.
It's a different
um,
animal
No,
completely.
it's there's one
Source
here that's on
water.
the aquifer. Which one is it?
You guys are getting
This
tight on
is-
your time.
this
is-
I'm sorry, I want you guys to be able to eat, so you don't get angry.
Because we have a big agenda
Continuing
tonight.
this as part of the conference.
The Sayreville, New Jersey is on the Old Bridge, Sands, and Farrington aquifers.
Yes.
Yeah, I gave that.
We have that from last time.
So,
Can I suggest for the June 26th resubmission conference? That works? Is that with the third item?
That's the third item, okay.
so we have to process it that fast?
Oh, that would be not 2 meetings, but, not the usual 2, but 3. That's 6 weeks from now, right?
And do we have everything that we want on this?
Yes, they submitted a very complete package, about the information that they're doing, I think. Pre-submission plans, concept, there's a lot to this. There'll be a lot to this, but,
I would
There
like
was
to.
a lot of information collected as part of the town boards working on that amortization law.
Amortization,
A lot
yeah.
of presentations, a lot of information collected. We might want to take a look at that. I don't know if that's all up on the website or not, but
I don't know anything about that besides.
I think we
I
need to.
watched some of them and there were
Yeah.
a great many, for and against and all that, but there's.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of
We
it,
don't have to
but
reinvent the wheel. I think we could all learn a little bit by reading some of what was presented then.
I also think I would love to know where this sand mine is in that amortization plan. Because I think that's an important piece of information that we now need, which we didn't before that code was changed.
Okay, so
June 26th. Motion?
Motion by Tom, second by Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent.
And then I just
Thank
have
you.
an extension.
We have an extension on
Just
Scuttle Hole Business Park,
Yep.
extension to
Thanks very much.
what, Claire? What's our extension date?
6/26.
May
Thank you.
15th, 2027.
Oh, why do I have?
27.
2027, 2
I have
years.
6/26/25 written down.
6/26/25.
I don't know why.
Oh, that was the original thing and resolution in there, but I amended that.
So extension to May 15, 2027, motion by,
Scuttle Hole?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
mo-
I'm like, why so
motion by
far out?
Tom, second by Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 5 in favor, 2 absent.
This is the, oh, no, it's not.
Why so
Is that
far
it?
out?
Yeah, that's it.
And we are adjourned? No?
No, you maybe go do this edit.
Oh,
I just
sorry,
ran and
yes.
did it.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you.
Oh, I said I didn't keep one for myself. Maybe this is not Thank you. So what I changed in this, was I added the 2 conditions at the bottom. So the planning board hereby approves the amendment for the affordable covenant for Citron 19, subject to the approval of the final covenant by the housing
Right.
director and subject to the amendment covenants being incorporated into the amended offering plan for the condominium.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, so we're heading this,
It'll be Citron 19. This is just straight from Minitrack, so it doesn't have the heading on it.
that's why Anthony didn't have it either. Yeah.
Yes. So, and this
Okay, so-
is, yeah, go ahead.
No, so we want a motion to approve, right?
Please.
What is it?
19 for the amendment to the covenant.
What's the name of the
This
applicant?
was Citron 19.
Thank you.
Citron
I
19.
missed the
That they're
Citron,
gonna
I
be
just
able
heard
to rent
19.
them. Right, the condos, they'll be able to rent them. Right?
Yes,
Yep.
Yes.
10 units,
the one.
the regular.
And one affordable is not rentable.
Okay, motion.
Okay, motion
Kate,
by
second.
Kate, second by
Second by me.
Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent.
Motion to adjourn.
You can, this is just your 94 holding. What Anthony had provided.
Oh, thank you.
And I wrote 94 Dune Road holding on top of it.
So Minitrack does not put the title of the document.
You'd have to save it, then print it. It takes 5 minutes and nobody has
5
5
minutes, nobody has 5 minutes. Okay, motion to adjourn and turn off your mics, please.
Did we adopt this one?
You don't have to adopt
I
it. You
wouldn't have to-
adopted it. This,
Oh,
you wanted
okay.
just a fresh copy.
Oh, thank you.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn by Kate, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 2 absent. Please turn off your mics.